All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Earth's Mightiest Comics. This is a show where every episode we talk about some recent-ish comics from the past couple of weeks, and we let you know what we thought about them, if we enjoyed them, if we recommend them to all of you, or if they're just big old piles of shit that we cannot recommend that anybody reads. Right off the bat, I just want to say apologies for not being very up-to-date on editing right now. I am currently recording this from Louisiana, which is not where I currently live, so I haven't had quite as much room to edit and everything. So hopefully once I'm back home, I will be able to, get back up on editing a little bit more. But don't worry, those episodes, if you're listening to this one, they would have already dropped, but they are still coming. I just have not, have not been able to edit them as much lately. However, of course, I'm able to record this, which is very, very cool because it's a solid week. There's definitely some stuff to dive into here, including the start of a new run on Batman and Robin. Start of a new Blade miniseries, the end of the Scarlett miniseries. We have a new X-Men book, Sentinels, a new Terminator book, also stuff like Ultimates, Transformers. But what we're going to start out with is, I would say, most definitely the biggest release of the week. That being Absolute Batman #1, which is written by Scott Snyder, and the artist is Nick Dragotta. So last episode we talked about the DC All-In special, which was kind of the culmination, a little bit like epilogue of Absolute Power, while also setting up this new kind of age of Earth 2 DC, while also additionally setting up and creating the Absolute Universe, which is like Earth 2 or something, but they don't have like their advantages that they had in Earth 2. So, for example, like Wonder Woman won't have Themyscira. I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming the Superman one is that he will not have been found by the Kents, and so his upbringing won't have been quite as solid. With Batman in this one, it's seemingly that he doesn't have his kind of tech or just basically not his tech so much, but his resources, his money.
The money.
Right, that he had in the previous universe. So, yeah, this is the first book in the Absolute Universe. And it's written, as mentioned, by Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder is one of the highest profile Batman writers ever, I would say. And I have somehow not read a single Scott Snyder comic in my life, I don't think. But he is probably most well known for his run on the New 52 iteration of Batman, where he co-created the Court of Owls. That is probably his biggest and most acclaimed run on the character. But he's been doing Batman for a while. He has been doing various iterations of Batman, and that continues with this one. So this is kind of, again, my first experience with Scott Snyder Batman, and I gotta say, I didn't like it very much.
This is atrocious.
Okay, that's a bit more of an intense reaction than I have to this one. I don't think it's good, though. It's fucking weird. It's a weird comic. It's got some stuff that I almost think are almost cool, but not quite. Like, the art looks good enough, and I think the design of the suit is interesting. And I like how modular it is, because this is a suit, we see him in the back half of the issue. He can kind of take it apart and do lots of stuff with it and use parts of it as weapons. I kind of like that in concept, but the way it's executed, some of it's pretty fucking dumb. It starts out with how does it start? Alfred's coming Gotham, yeah. He's been doing like Secret Service stuff. This is something that's kind of similar with Earth 2. We knew he was like he was at least a soldier, and I think he did some kind of more covert operation things as well. So he's coming back to Gotham, and he's basically there to observe and gather intelligence on this gang called the Party Animals. But it's basically just a Black Mask gang, it seems. They, a lot of them wear these black masks. I don't know for sure if like the leader of them is the same like person behind the mask as in Earth 2. But it clearly does seem to be a Black Mask kind of gang. But so he's kind of warned by his handler that there's another player in town, that player being Batman. And Bruce in this, so first of all, his mom is still alive. His dad is dead, but his mom is still alive. Because when he was a kid, he was at the zoo, and some dude just came and shot his dad.
Not
so
just his dad, but
sure, yeah, but he was Right. Well, yes, but we only kind of saw that in relation to his dad dying there. And so yeah, so his mom is still alive though, and he seemingly doesn't have the money that he has in Earth 2, although it's not really, they don't kind of overtly say that, but he's like working a bunch of, kind of not as cozy jobs, if you will. He's just kind of, he's doing, he's going around doing like construction work. He has to go, he studies and he has this, gets all these college degrees and everything, and kind of does a bunch of odd jobs to kind of try and learn a lot about the city and just about things in general. And he also seems to have connections to some people who in Earth 2 are villains, but here they're, I mean, they kind of still are, but it's not kind of as overt. They seem to kind of just be doing more like, theft and stuff in that vein, as opposed to becoming supervillains and trying to like blow up Gotham. So, but like he knows, apparently, I think it's Harvey Dent. He definitely knows Oswald Cobblepot, Penguin. And I think they mention, who's the other one they mention? They mentioned somebody else.
I know they mentioned Selina, and he's talking to Waylon Jones, which is the Croc.
Oh, I didn't. I actually did not even make the connection that's Croc. They might have been talking about the Riddler. I'm not quite sure.
I don't remember if they mentioned Riddler.
There's another guy they mentioned. Yeah, I don't remember who it is though. So anyway, basically when Alfred is surveying the party animal gang as they go to attack this kind of town hall thing where Jim Gordon, who is mayor in this universe, is talking to a bunch of people about how they're going to take down the Black Mask gang. They show up, they attack, and Batman comes in and kind of fights them all. And Alfred has orders to engage Bruce if he pops up, but he kind of sits back, lets Bruce take care of the gang, and then goes and kind of fights him. And then ultimately, Bruce very easily takes out Alfred, like steals his bike, but then ultimately Alfred goes and kind of figures out who Bruce is and kind of goes and confronts him, and Bruce is ultimately like, fuck you, and then just kind of jumps out of a like 15-story window on his bike. And then the end, it's like it's kind of a post-credits kind of thing, where these guys are like, oh, we're transporting this one guy, and you don't make jokes around him. His name is the Joker because he's never laughed once ever. And that's the actual end of the issue. So yeah, I just think it's weird and it's dense, and I think it's overly so. I think the Alfred stuff I don't mind, and I don't mind the backstory of this Bruce. I think that stuff is all fine. What I think doesn't necessarily work is kind of Bruce himself. And this universe also, just this rendition of Gotham just does not immediately interest me in the same way that the Earth 2 version of Gotham does. Like it's fine, and it's not that different. It's fine. But this one does, I feel like, give me more kind of like, it's just Chicago vibes, kind of like the Nolan trilogy. It doesn't feel as gothic or as, very kind of artistically unique. It just kind of feels more to me just like another city, and that to me immediately decreases the engagement that the setting carries with it. And on top of that, the modulation of the suit, I don't know how to feel about it. To some of it, I think it's kind of cool. The way he kind of like seemingly like shoots, or he can use, like, he has like a rope in his cape or something. He has something in his cape that's pretty cool. I don't mind the fact that he can like snap the ears off of his cowl and use those as batarangs. I think that's kind of cool. But then there's a part where he just fucking takes a stick and attaches it to the bat chest emblem, and then it's like a magnet and it makes an axe and stuff like that. I don't know. That it's weird, and it's kind of bordering between very dumb and kind of cool. And so I just, stuff like that, and it's just ultimately like, I think it's too dense. I think, the issue, it's long, but it's a first issue, so I kind of get it. That's a very standard thing to do with the first issue, but it does feel like kind of a slog. And ultimately, there's some cool art in here, I guess. It's not terrible, I don't think, and I kind of like the scene where Bruce is suiting up as we're seeing all this news footage about, all the murders that the party animal gang is doing. There's stuff in here that I think does work, but ultimately I thought it was kind of a drag, kind of dull. and just kind of weird in some of its choices. So yeah, this one didn't really do it for me. I'm curious to see why you hate it as much as you do.
I love this.
Wait, did you?
I love this.
Oh, so when you said this is atrocious,
Yes.
you meant that it's atrocious that I didn't love it.
Yes.
Oh, see, I thought you just said this is atrocious, meaning the book. Okay. Well, then why did you love it so much?
This is my pick of the week.
Oh my God, what?
Yes.
This is probably my least favorite thing I read this week.
I loved this. This was amazing. Everything about it, in my opinion, like the storytelling, the way they told like this new, just basically kind of the like not so much the way it started, but like it started with Alfred basically going over Gotham and like how it's still the exact same Gotham that we know, and then we go into Bruce and he's just at like this like boxing gym, and he looks like an absolute like genuine unit. This man looks humongous in this shot for some reason.
Yeah, no, and I think that's actually true of the entire issue. I that is one thing that I do like. I like how like big and imposing they made him. I do think that is a good visual change from the main one, even if it's kind of a small thing.
And that could be, I don't know if it's just because like later on we kind of like based off of like Alfred's like kind of like narration, that he kind of seems to have like not the same upbringing obviously, but like the same like experience in like martial arts kind of, because he was when he was fighting the party animals, he was like using like his own version of like mixed martial arts and stuff like that. So like maybe he probably didn't learn it from like like how our Batman learned it, but he has his own form of his own martial arts that works and stuff like that. And so you get a bit of a backstory that, Bruce was raised alongside a bunch of his villains from Earth 2. So yeah, so we learned that he's actually grown up alongside of like Selina, Waylon Jones, Oswald, Harvey Dent, and I guess Nigma, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
We're unsure about Nigma, but
yeah,
that's a possibility on that one. They all grew up together. And I guess Oswald might be involved in some stuff.
Sounds like he is. Yeah,
it sounds like he is. But yeah, we didn't know much about the rest really. Besides the fact that Waylon Jones or Killer Croc, I'll just call him Killer Croc, honestly. He's gonna open up an exotic pet shop, and he's literally holding a croc.
Listen, I have not read much that has Killer Croc in it. All right, my main experience with him is in that fucking Suicide Squad movie. So.
Oh man. Anyway, what Suicide Squad movie?
The 2016 one that he's in. The first one. The first like live action one. The not James Gunn one.
Oh God, he is in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, he is in that. Yeah. It's a really bad version of him, but he's in it. Yeah.
I completely forgot he was in it. Yeah. And then, we get the backstory of, they're at the Bruce and his dad are at the Gotham Zoo. Some dude comes in to shoot it up, I guess, and his dad is a teacher. And so he's like, it's like a school field trip. So he hides the kids in like a room, and he doesn't make it into the room, I guess, and he dies. But yeah, then just the action scene between Batman and the party animals, I think that was amazing. Just the way like his suit is so different. Like at the end of the cape, he has like these like hook things that he like utilizes that like just throws people.
I like that. Yeah.
The bat ears, they were like knives.
Yeah.
That it's nice to see that as well, that he still kind of has the same standards. He still doesn't kill.
Yeah, although he does seem a little bit more violent. He's stabbing the shit out of one guy.
A lot more violent, obviously, because at one point he cuts off a guy's hand completely.
Yeah, that's true.
So he still doesn't kill, it seems, because according to Alfred, he was stabbing people but missing arteries, so they'd still heal, they'd survive. And so it's nice to see that that's still a thing. But yeah, just that fight scene, just seeing this new Batman in action. I think the way the suit works is really cool. I didn't mind the axe. I thought that was,
I think it's a little bit dumb, and I don't like how it just leaves like this golden like magnet thing in place. I don't know what else it just looks weird to me. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, you got to think about it. That's probably like a giant iron plate. It's got to be like, it probably just leaves it like unprotected when he takes it off, I'm sure it's armored under that. In fact, I think actually usually, I think a lot of times like he'll armor
the bat symbol more heavily because that's such
in
an
the chest,
easy
yeah.
it's such a good target because it's just a big thing for people to kind of focus on. So yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, just everything. I really liked everything about this one, and then the ending scene with between Alfred and Bruce
That
up in
was
the
fun.
tower.
Yeah.
That was fine. Like whatever. We'll see how they end up getting along, if they get along, as this one moves forward.
They might
It kind of
eventually.
also at the same time, I think maybe his mom knows. I'm not too sure. It kind of seemed weird at one point when we first see his mom still alive. She asks him about the party animals and stuff like that, and he starts talking as if like he was the one like literally talking up on stage, which kind of confused me. I don't know. I might have read that like a bit wrong, but like he was like, yeah, I was about to get my point across, but then they came in guns a blazing, and I'm like, well, he wasn't even like there, so I don't really know where that one. I don't know. I could just be reading that one wrong though. But yeah, I absolutely loved everything about this one. Actually, the art, the way the story was told, just the way it flowed, everything about this I loved. It was great. Absolutely loved this one. I gave it a 9.
Yeah, I did not. I'm gonna give it a 6. I think tentatively, almost gave it a 5. I think hearing you kind of talk about it, I will raise it a little bit because I don't think it's that bad. It's fine, but this is one that genuinely, I think I will probably. I don't know. I think there's absolutely, if you will, absolute Batman. There's absolutely a chance that I will drop this at some point. I'm gonna give it a couple more before I do that, but I might drop this at some point. So yeah, 6 for me. I did not love this, unfortunately.
Let's stick with the Batman theme. Let's go Batman and Robin.
All right, Batman and Robin. This is Batman and Robin 14, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson now, with the artist being Javier Fernandez. So yeah, this is the first issue of a new arc here and a new run, and this is a new creative team on this book now. After the previous creative team, Joshua Williamson and Simone DeMeo slash like Juan Ferreira slash lots of other artists has left. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you would know that I did start that initial run and then dropped it like 4 issues in because I wasn't a huge fan of it. But again, new writer on this, a writer that I would say I generally like but don't love. It's the same writer as Incredible Hulk right now, as well as Sebastian's favorite series, Green Lantern War Journal. So yeah, but it's a new start for the team, new start for the book. And so this one essentially it starts off with just some Batman and Robin just doing some Batman and Robin stuff. They beat up a bunch of guys who have like car bombs. It's not exactly clear what they're trying to do, I don't think, but that's not
Knight. I remember that.
Yeah, no, so right, no, hang on. It's they're taking down the bridge for the Green, which is something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, but yeah, and then there's a caption box saying for more about the Order of the Green Knight, check out Poison Ivy. So I'm way behind on Poison Ivy. I do want to get back up on that at some point, but so something to do with Poison Ivy apparently. And then basically the rest of the issue is just Bruce and Damian going to the kind of grand opening of this medical facility. It's also kind of it's a charity fundraiser at the same time. Bruce's father's one of his like students is also there and kind of is the one who's going to be spearheading the entire organization. And Damian has a horrible time there. He does not like it at all. He's kind of like just being very sarcastic and kind of a dick to everybody. And then some people show up and Bruce goes to kind of try and find out who they are, what they're doing, while Damian stays behind to kind of protect everybody else who's at the party. And Bruce ends up in some weird, like he ends up in this boiler room, which years ago had been the cause of this like deadly fire that killed 12 people. And then he sees some weird, like creepy dude there. And then the thing blows up. And that is basically it for this issue. So who is that? Do you know who that guy is, by the way?
The doctor guy?
The guy at the end.
Oh, the villain.
Yeah.
No.
Or is he new?
I don't know him.
Okay.
He's not new to Bruce, obviously.
Yeah, right. I just don't know if he's new overall.
I don't know him. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind this. I think this is solid. I think it's better than the other Batman book this week. I think like immediately I think the art is pretty great. I think I love the very moody atmosphere that it's doing here. Some parts more than others, but I think the action sequences are great. I think the panel layouts are very good, leading to this very kinetic flow that I think is just kind of fantastic. And yeah, that kind of ending sequence in the boiler room, I think is very cool, both from a story and art perspective. I really like, again, just the fire and you know the shadows, the atmosphere. I think it's really good stuff. I am curious about who this like hunched over top hat dude is. Again, I really don't know who this is. I mean, and his dialogue doesn't really make it clear. I don't know. There's one line that sticks out to me where it says "Memento Mori" written stone. I'm wondering if his name is going to be like Memento Mori, but I'm not sure. So regardless, though, that scene is cool. I'm curious to see what's going on more there. And the rest of it's solid enough. I think the action sequence at the start is pretty cool. I think it's pretty fun, helped in large part by the art. And you know, Damien's fine. I'm not a huge fan of Damien. Just generally, he's kind of just doing his usual annoying stuff here. And I think it's fine. It's not like overly irritating for me, but it's not amazing. I'm curious how this plays for you, because I have not read like the past 9 or 10 issues of this run. I'm curious, does this play better or worse for you having actually stayed up with this?
All right, so we are gonna let me think this. How am I gonna word this? We are opposites on all Batman things related today.
Oh no.
I hated this.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
It completely just undid everything.
That's what I was curious about. Yeah.
Everything that like literally the entire series up to this point, it just undid all of it with this one issue. Like the entire thing was about the dynamic between Damien and Bruce, and literally in just this issue, it destroyed Damien's character entirely. Like literally how we left it last issue, it's already undone. Like I don't understand why that has happened. And you know, that was like for me, that was a big part of the story was, you know, just it focused a lot on Damien and how he was acting at this like thing or whatever. And obviously there was the later half of it, which was, you know, Bruce going down and like these people blocking in the people, whatever, the Memento Mori and stuff. But for the most part, you saw a lot of Damien and Bruce in this one and this hospital thing. And, you know, it was just literally just Damien as if he had first gotten there like straight off of like dropped off by his mom. Like it was just like this is like just I hate everything about being about not being like when I'm not Robin. I'm just like what like this is completely like a 180 to his character all of a sudden to compare to like how we left it off literally last time. Like I don't understand. Like if we get like him going back to school and he's just like this same ass Damien, I don't understand why we had the first 13 issues. I really don't.
Yeah.
Art wise, I think this was pretty good. Like I like the beginning. Genuinely, when they were like fighting the car people, you know, like he's fine when he's Robin, but he's always been fine. Like, well, not always fine, but you know, because before he would sometimes try to kill people. But you know, the whole point of I feel like not the whole point of the last 13 issues, but like a big part of the last 13 issues was working on Damien himself, and you know, being a child because the man is very old mentally. And so I just don't understand why we went back and undid all of that in this one issue. Like I said, Robin, him as being as Robin is fine. He's happy. He's like, he works well now with Batman, all that stuff. But when he's Damien, all of a sudden he's a little shit again. And I don't understand why we literally just undid 13 issues. So yeah, I did not like this, and I gave it a 4.
Wow. Okay. So, question for you: how long do you think you're going to stick with this now?
I'm gonna give it the 3.
Okay.
3 rule here.
It would be really funny if like you read the entire first run and then as soon as I start reading, you just drop off and I read the next run. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm gonna move on over and talk about.
You didn't give it.
Oh shoot, you're right. I didn't give it a rating. 7. I think. You know what? Okay, this is gonna piss Sebastian off. I'm gonna give it an 8. I didn't mind this. I thought it was decent.
How could you like this? No, genuinely, how could you like this more than Absolute Batman? Like, honestly, that was. I think I hate it so much simply because I kept up with it.
Right.
Like, you going into it now, like, it's just the same old Damien for you.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just a completely different character, and oh man, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why, because I didn't really gel with the last run, and this one, it's starting fresh. And since I didn't get that far in the other one, I don't know kind of how things develop that much. And so I don't know. This was just it was just a fun, like, kind of standard Batman story that had a really intriguing villain thing at the end, where as Absolute, I feel like was way overwrought in its narration. I feel like the differences to Earth 2 were not enough to justify the new universe. I thought the supporting characters outside of Alfred were not great. So yeah, and ultimately I just find myself kind of getting a little bit bored with that one. Whereas this one, I was engaged. I didn't think it was amazing, but I was engaged. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8. And then yeah, I'm gonna go and talk about Blade real quick. Yeah, so Sebastian was able to find Blade, but I was able to find Blade. This is Blade Red Band, because this is the only edition, is a Red Band edition for this book. Written by Brian Hill, with the artist being C.F. Villa, or as I've maybe realized lately that I've been mispronouncing it, might actually be Villa. Either way, yeah, it's a new Blade book, but written by the same writer who did the previous Blade run, also the same writer who did the Midnight Suns Blood Hunt book, and also the same writer who is currently doing Ultimate Black Panther. So that, on its own, is why I was kind of skeptical for this book, because I think the track record of Brian Hill is not great for me. That first Blade run, I think, was inconsistent. I think it had good moments, but it was very all over the place for me. I think his Ultimate Black Panther run is only just kind of now getting to the point where I'm consistently looking forward to it. But previously, I've talked about it to death on this show. I have been very back and forth on Ultimate Black Panther. And Blood Hunt Midnight Suns, I think, was pretty good, but it kind of had some weird stuff towards the end. So this issue basically needed to, on its own, justify me continuing to read it. I think if I had not liked this first issue, I might have just dropped the book entirely, because this is only a 5-issue miniseries. So, this one really had to do a lot of legwork to really make sure that I liked it enough to keep reading it. And I just want to check real quick. I'm going to double check everything right now. I think this is my pick of the week. I think this was a very, very strong first issue. I think it was a much stronger first issue than Ultimate Black Panther. And I think it was a much, much stronger first issue than the first Blade series that Brian Hill did. I was concerned, because I think towards the end of that Blade run, I was getting more into it. But the whole relaunch thing, I've thought about this quite a bit too. Like, the fact that Marvel is just constantly relaunching the same books with the same characters and the same creative teams, or the same writers at least, it is kind of annoying. And I did, because I called back when that first Blade series ended. I said, I pretty much guarantee there will be another Blade book from the same writer in a few months when Blood Hunt ends. And it did happen. And I was kind of tempted to not get it. But the fact that it was a Red Band book made me curious. And the fact that Midnight Suns Blood Hunt I did like more or less also made me think, well, I might as well pick it up. And I do think, like, the Red Band stuff, it's kind of unnecessary. I don't know. I give it a little bit more of a pass here, because it is the only edition of this book. It's not a Blood Hunt or a Wolverine Revenge thing where there are two versions. But because when there's two versions of it, it does feel a little bit scammy. But here, like, I'm a little bit less irritated by it. There's a couple points where it's a little bit gnarly, but it's not crazy. I mean, the cover's pretty gnarly. But that's honestly the gnarliest part of this book, is that cover. Regardless, anyway, the plot is Blade is basically in self-exile on this island. He's just kind of trying to stay away from everybody after the whole Varney thing, after he got possessed and all that. When this dude shows up, this dude's name is Damien. And he's like, hey, there's a group of, I think it's like other bad vampires or something, who they want Blade to go and kill. And he's part of this organization called the Spell Guard. It's this kind of mystic organization. They kind of practice the mystic arts. This guy's got a cool character design, actually. He's got, like, his eyes sewn shut. It's pretty cool, pretty creepy. And yeah, so they want him to go kill Pontius Van Helsing, I guess a descendant of the original Van Helsing, who then got turned into a vampire and has killed a bunch of other people. So they want him to kill this guy. Blade goes to talk to the physical form of this guy, because this guy has kind of only sent his astral form there because he didn't want Blade to just kill him, which Blade does try to do. But then, yeah, Blade goes to the place where they all kind of operate out of. He sees this dude who was, like, tortured by Pontius Van Helsing. That's a pretty gnarly image, to be fair. I'm looking at that right now. That's pretty gross. But basically, Damien and the Spellguard are basically like, hey, you've seen what Van Helsing did to this guy, go kill him now. And Blade instead kills all of these other people in this Spellguard area and ends up being like, I'm still going to go and kill Van Helsing, but I'm doing it on my terms and not on this weird Spellguard group's terms. And they also make some reference to they have another leader outside of that. They don't say who it is. This could be way out there, but I think it might be Doom. Like, that's the immediate thought I have, because they're talking about Mystic Art stuff, and he's the Sorcerer Supreme now. Yeah, basically ends with Blade going to try and find Van Helsing, and that's the end of this first issue. And again, I think as a debut for a miniseries, it's good. It is very good. I was, again, skeptical for a lot of reasons about this book, and I do still think, like, I would have preferred if they just kept the run going, if they were going to, continue it at all rather than relaunching it. But I do think it seems pretty focused. It seems like it has a very clear vision for what it wants to do. The art's very good. It's cool. And I think it feels like a more momentum-filled start than any of Brian Hill's previous work that I have read, other than maybe the Blood Hunt tie-in with Midnight Suns. So I think it's a very solid start. I'm surprised to be saying that, but I did really like this. This was probably my pick of the week. I'm torn between an 8 and a 9. I think just to give it that extra boost over the rest of the books that I got this week, I'm gonna give it a 9. It's a low 9 or a high 8, but I do just think it's a very solid issue, and I'm glad I did decide to give it a shot. But yeah, it's good, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next.
Bit early, but let's go with it. Transformers.
Okay, all right. This is Transformers number 13, written, of course, by Daniel Warren Johnson. We have a guest artist on this issue. It is Jason Howard. So Jorge Corona is not on this issue or the next issue, but he is coming back with issue number 15 for the continuation of the next part of the main story. This issue is the first of a 2-part flashback arc, kind of dealing with the origin of Starscream and kind of how he got to be, where he is. He's friends with one guy whose name I don't remember, but he's also friends with Jetfire, and just kind of shows them hanging out on Cybertron a little bit. They see these big fucking ship-sized Transformers in this migration. I don't know what they are. Are they named? Do you know what these are?
The one that we saw is called, I believe, Omega Supreme.
Okay. Yeah, so it's flying by, and Starscream and the others try to get its attention because they want to be seen by something this gigantic. And so they do, and it waves, and then it comes back and starts destroying the entire planet.
That's not how it...
Is it not? I thought that it did come back.
No.
Okay. I mean, because there definitely is I thought one of them was hey, yeah, this is the line, right? Because ultimately there's a big fight. They're fighting the Autobots here as well. Optimus Prime is around, and Bumblebee is doing some stuff. Actually, is Optimus Prime in this? Yeah, he is. He's on one page. So the Autobots kill one of Starscream's friends, whose name is No, it's Genvo. It's Genvo. So they kill one of his friends, and the line that Genvo says is, "You did it, Ulktar. You yelled at the gods. You screamed the stars into seeing us." Which, by the way, fantastic line. That shit goes hard.
Top 10 death lines ever spoken.
Yeah, that was super cool. Number 9. Fuck, I can't think of any other death lines right now. Okay, so that's why I kind of thought that it might have been something to do with those guys, but maybe not. And so then basically most of the rest of this issue, well, in the flashback we also see Megatron goes, and after Starscream's friends die, Megatron shows up and is join our side. And not only that, he does it's the Gen 1 Megatron design where he transforms into a gun, and and then lets Starscream wield the gun and is you are now my friend or whatever. And then in the present, basically, what we see is that Starscream is seemingly still alive. He's probably not. He's not doing too well. He's not probably that far off from death, but he's still alive, and he gets picked up by some guys from Mars Industries, it seems, I believe, and that's kind of it for the issue. So, yeah, again, like I have again with the last couple of issues, I have very much converted to being a hardcore, maybe not hardcore, but like a genuine fan of the series. I do like it quite a lot, and I think this issue is good. I would have liked to see more immediate development of the present day stuff, but I get why we're not doing that yet. I imagine that Jorge Corona definitely needed a break because he was doing 2 books at the same time monthly for like the past 6 months. He was doing 8-Node Rave and he was doing this. So I'm sure he needed a break. And I get why you would want to, and I appreciate the fact that you would want to make sure to keep your series regular artist for the like main part, the main present day part of the book. So I do kind of appreciate them taking a break from that. But at the same time, like as someone who has been very invested in the past couple issues, it would have been nice to see more direct advancement. But I think what's here is good. It's good to have that backstory of Starscream. I think it all, works well enough. I like the, Megatron appearance. I know Sebastian was saying that he wanted to see Megatron pop up soon. I'm sure this was not quite what you were meaning by that, but he is still here. Kind of seeing more about the other side of the war for Cybertron, I think is cool as well, because we haven't really seen much of that, like not on Cybertron at least. We've seen a lot of that in the Earthbound stuff, but we haven't seen any of that on Cybertron. So that was nice to see. And I do think the art is very good. Like Jason Howard, I don't know if I've read anything from him before, but it's very solid. It's a little bit more sleek, I would say, than some of the others, but it still does very much keep that, kind of little bit of a gritty feel, but definitely not as much. It is a little bit cleaner, I would say. But I think that works because at the start of this issue, at least, it is kind of a more, it's just the 3 Transformers just kind of hanging around. They're having fun on Cybertron. It's a little bit less, dire circumstances for the Transformers themselves. So I think that kind of lighter art style works. And I think the big moments, the big spreads and big splash pages are all super cool. So yeah, generally I don't think this is quite as good as the past couple of issues, because I think that bar was set very high. But I still think this is a good start to this, 2-issue mini arc. I'm glad it's only 2 issues till we get back to the, the main story, because I do think that will hopefully prevent the momentum from being stalled too much. But yeah, good stuff. I think this is a pretty good issue.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was nice to see. I don't know much of Starscream's past. I know more about Optimus and Megatron, obviously, because they're like the 2 biggest ones, so I know about their past, but I didn't really know a lot about Starscream's past. So it was kind of nice to be enlightened upon what has happened. It starts with 2 of his friends, Jetfire and then Genvo. Yeah, and Starscream used to be, I guess, like an astrologer of sorts. He was
like, we're gonna say an Australian.
No, an astrologer of sorts. He was like making maps or like charting something, or I don't know what exactly, but he was doing something for Jetfire essentially. And then so basically them 3 they went and saw this ginormous transformer. I don't know what they're called. I know they have a name. I just do not know what they are called.
You are right that singular one is Omega Supreme, but I don't know the overall
I do not
type
know.
of transformer name.
I don't know what they're called. But anyway. So basically, to get the giant transformer to like look at them, Starscream breaks into they broke into a military base and they blew it up. I say they, but it was mostly Starscream. The other 2 just followed really. Nobody did it or anything like that. They just kind of set off a couple of explosives, and that got the guy to look at them. They waved, and he waved back. And
by the way, did that single-handedly start the war? Because that would be kind of dumb if it did.
No. Remember before that, when they were just talking before the ginormous guy showed up, Genvo had already joined the Decepticons.
Right.
So the war had already been going on. But yeah. So Jetfire. After that, we see Jetfire leave. He's going to chart the stars with Starscream's charts or something like that.
Presumably, that's when he then runs into Dark and Solilla in space. At some point.
True. Yeah.
Worst character in the Energon universe, Darek.
Okay. Anyway, and then we get it's like a bit of I assume it's a bit of a skip. I'm not too sure, but we then see Starscream get woke up by a battle going outside of his house or home or wherever he lived, and we see Genvo, and he's like, "We gotta run! They're upon us!" And it's just the Autobots, raiding essentially the Decepticons. and Genbo gets struck and he dies. And yeah, so we see Starscream carrying in his Genbo's body, and then we also see Megatron show up, and he's like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "I'm Starscream." And yeah, and that's how he becomes Starscream. Although in this one, he doesn't seem like this little like rat that we like all know Starscream to be.
No, he just seems pissed off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see where his like how that comes about. Maybe he's just scared of battle in general and he doesn't want to die. He doesn't seem like that kind of character yet, so I don't know. Maybe the next one we'll see something more about that one. But yeah, I didn't mind this one. I thought those were pretty good. Still keeping. Yeah, I will say didn't notice artist change. I don't know if you did. You always. Do.
I know ahead of time who is the artist on what, so I already knew going into it that it was different. It's close. I do feel like the differences are definitely there, though, if you're looking for them.
Yeah, I was not, so I really did not notice. And yeah, no, I enjoyed the story. It was pretty good. It was kind of nice to know how Starscream truly got his name. His other name was like his first original name is like Ulthar or something like that.
Ulthar or something, yeah,
something like that. But I thought this was pretty good. I gave it an 8.
We're gonna give it an 8 as well. Next up, Sebastian, I think we should give a read, or not a read. We already gave it a read. We should talk about a series that you have been off of for a little while, and go and talk about Geiger. Yeah, now for me, I'm talking about issue number 7, but Sebastian only read issue number 3. So once again, I will let him start this one off, and then I'll do my Geiger 7 thoughts after that.
All right, yeah. Okay, so going into it, I was a bit dreading it, I won't lie. But after reading it, I didn't overly mind it. I will say I think my biggest gripe right now is with Nate, the knight. I absolutely hate his guts. I think he's just awful as a character.
I do think he gets better, because I didn't love him at the start, but he's become more endearing, I think, the more I've read.
He's just he does not understand anything that goes around him, and he's just super oblivious. And I just don't understand. Literally, a big part of this third issue was about Geiger getting a certain book that I think he was used to read to his family or something like that. I don't know exactly, but basically they went. The beginning started with them going out of their way to get this book. They then traverse and they get met with the radio heads or something like that. Radioactive people. I don't remember what the
I don't know
group is called. Something radio organ, or something like that.
The organ people, probably.
Yeah, is it just the organ people?
I think it's the organ people, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, they get caught up by them, and fucking Nate, what he decides to do, uses a weapon, is the book. They literally spent the entire first part getting, and then he just tells Geiger, are you upset? Is it the book? You're not upset over that little thing. And he's just you don't understand. It's he literally went a day's travel out of their way to get this book, and you're saying it's not that big a deal. How do you not understand that it's kind of a big deal to him? But whatever. And then
I will say though, in subsequent issues, they do make strides to give Nate a character arc in regards to pretty much that exact thing. So that does get resolved.
No, and I will say it kind of got resolved in this one as well. As in the night when Geiger was sleeping, Nate went out and found another library, found the book, and he found a book for himself that also reminded him of his family. So at least they're fixing it, but just reading through that was only until the end. Reading through it, I hated it. I hated Nate. Story-wise, I found this one a little better. I won't lie. The first 2 issues, I just didn't understand. I found the story boring, but this one, it's the same story, kind of. It focused a lot more on just this book part of it and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't mind it, honestly. I'd give it a 7, genuinely.
Yeah, you're also at the point where Geiger's dog is about to be kidnapped, which ratchets up the emotional stakes quite a bit. That's right at the end of this issue. Right? Yeah. So that does end up bringing the tension of everything up quite a bit. So issue number 7, it's weird. It's in this kind of weird place where it's almost in between arcs, but still kind of setting up this arc as well. Because last issue we had the epilogue. By the way, this issue is written by Jeff Johns. The artist is who is the artist on this one? It's not Gary Frank. The artist is Paul Pelletier. or Pelletier. It is a fill-in artist this issue, and the art is definitely, like, again, it's noticeably different, but it still keeps the vibe, I think, very similar, which does help with the overall just consistency there. I would say the line work is maybe a little bit thicker, but outside of that, it's it's similar enough that it keeps the same tone and everything. This starts off with last issue we had the epilogue, kind of that was very much its own one-shot, self-contained story. This issue we have kind of some aftermath, just kind of character development between Geiger and Nate, as well as kind of setting up the next arc. A big part of this issue, we start off, they're in the middle of this big fight with some of the other like radioactive knights that Nate used to be a part of. And it gets interesting because one of them, like, we start seeing some of the gray area of some of these other factions, because one of them was like kind of a friend of Nate when he was himself a knight, and this guy even stops Nate from like stealing a meal from one of the like basically slaves who the knights and the whole kind of royalty faction of this world were like basically again using as slaves. And so Nate was like grateful for the fact that this other guy stopped him from doing that and tries to spare him, but Geiger just kills him anyway. Granted, like, this guy does stab Nate with a sword, so like Geiger killing him doesn't come out of nowhere. But even still, Nate is kind of upset because he's starting to kind of see the morally gray nature of this world, whereas Geiger, he feels like is not. He feels like Geiger is just kind of killing anybody who is affiliated with these people, whereas he kind of wants to save some of the people in that, again, in that group, because he used to be one of them. And so he wants to kind of try and save his friends that he knows or that he thinks could be better. And so that conversation between Nate and Geiger, I think, is really interesting. I think it's quite good. And I think it doesn't quite go too far in this direction, but it is setting up some sort of friction between Nate and Geiger that I think is good. And this kind of thing is why I think that Nate is growing on me. He is starting to have his eyes opened a little bit about the nature of the world. He's kind of less this, just kind of very not super like aware, not super observant, just kind of very kind of innocent kind of character, despite the fact that he used to be like a murderer. He's kind of starting to see some of the problems with Geiger, and I think if they develop that could be a really good way to go in future. And then they come across this army of nightcrawlers that's attacking some kids. Nate and Geiger fight them off, and then essentially just kind of try and escort them safely back to where they kind of the bunker where they live. Except, so then they kind of immediately connect because Geiger likes books, and one of these kids is talking about a book. But then the kid's like, don't tell our teachers that we have books, because they don't like books. And then at the very end, we see one of the higher ups in the kind of royalty army of Vegas kind of sending out word to unite all the kind of heads of all these families to go after and kill Geiger. So it is setting up some stuff, more immediately, seemingly a conflict between Geiger and these teachers or whatever, supposedly, of this one place, this one bunker, who are, I just apparently, not book fans. Obviously, Geiger's going to have a problem with that because he loves books. But then kind of more long-term setting up the, factions of Vegas trying to kill Geiger. And so I think it's a solid enough issue. It's not amazing. I rarely find these Geiger books to be amazing, but I think it's solid enough. Again, I really like the conversation between Nate and Geiger in this. I don't know. There is part of me that does feel like this maybe would have worked more as another just self-contained kind of mini thing that ended in the last issue or so, or even 2 issues ago. I think it had a really good, solid story arc there with good emotional stakes that wrapped up in a good way. There is some stuff like the development of Nate and Geiger's relationship that I am glad to see explored further, but some of this other stuff seems like it is kind of gonna be some filler stories until we get to the next kind of big thing. And that's the part that I lost interest in the previous arc. So that's the part that I'm a little bit not as much looking forward to in this upcoming arc. But as far as this issue goes, it's solid enough. I think it's another solid one. I would probably give it a 7. And yeah, we'll see how the upcoming issues go.
All right. Well, moving along here, we will do. Let's see here. I'll do this one. X-Force number 4.
Okay, so yeah, funny story about this. I again have been on the road. I picked up my comics in a just on the road, just in a city I stopped in on the road, and completely forgot to pick this one up. I just was not thinking I had to get somewhere else later that night, so I just forgot to pick this up. As a result, I did not read this one, and I'm kind of sad about that because this is like the one Man-Thing appearance we get a year.
Yeah. But anyway, this I still don't like this series.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got.
Yeah. Anyway, it starts off with they all got knocked out in the last issue except for Tank, and so he goes to try and fight Nucleo, but Nucleo just disappears. They're all like questioning the giant fucking temple that just randomly appeared, and Forge, he's being super fucking cryptic with like what the hell they're supposed to be doing, like the orb thing, the thing they're supposed to be, the Nexus events.
Is
or
he
whatever.
pondering the orb enough?
He ponders it like 3 times this issue.
That's what we like to see. That should automatically give it like 3 extra
but
stars.
He's not doing a good job because he's not understanding it.
But
so
I think if you understand it right, then you can't really ponder it as much, right?
No, I guess. Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, they go into this temple, and there's been like a battle here, but it took place like ages, like thousands of years ago, I guess, or something like that. And so he like shows what the orb is showing him, or something like that, and it's like showing a line down in like the Everglades. So Captain Britain opens up like a portal to this place. They go in there, and then they teleport to the Everglades, where there's like a bunch of like monsters or something, and there's like a bunch of like rifts into other dimensions that are like just constantly opening. And so they start attacking the monsters, but they're like, okay, this is never gonna end unless we find Nucleo. So they find Nucleo. There's 2 of them now, and they're trying to defeat him, and that's when Man-Thing shows up. He shows up, doesn't say a word, grows really big because they're in the Everglades, so he sucks up some vines, and he punches Nucleo. And then there's, like I said, there's 2 Nucleos, so they combine, and they get even bigger than Man-Thing, and then they kill him.
So Sebastian told me about this before we started recording. That is very disappointing to me. I am convinced that I am like the world's biggest Man-Thing fan, and so to hear that is quite disappointing.
He does fuck all. And then, oh my god, what happens after that? Yeah, the X-Force is like, all right, even though we just saw some fucking like basically god for like the green just die, we still have to try and kill Nucleo. And so they are about to fight him again, and then that's when the Avengers show up, and they're like, for trespassing in our land dome.
Oh my god, what?
Yeah, I don't know. It was Storm. It was a weird looking Iron Man. It was Black Panther, but he's like dressed in all white instead of black.
What?
And there's this other guy who apparently is named Horus, who I think is like their new version of Thor.
What the fuck is this? What?
I don't know. It's bad. Guys, listen. I'm making a new rule, honestly. If they're on the cover like this and they're about to do like, if they're gonna do something, then do something. If they don't do anything, like this Man-Thing did nothing, he was just there to be there. Listen, it's gonna get a 1-star from me from now on. Like, why are you gonna hype up Man-Thing on the cover and then have him for a page? Like, what's the point?
I'm curious, because the cover says Man-Thing, friend or foe.
Yeah.
Does that factor in at all? Do they ever wonder that, or is he just shows up, punches Nucleo, and then dies?
Kind of. Like Forge says, like I don't remember. Somebody else was like, "What's that thing?" And Forge is like, "That's Man-Thing." I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, he's like, "That's Man-Thing." And I think he does wonder at one point, like hold up, let's see. But then he punches Nucleo. Like they don't like. They literally just witness it all. They just stand on the sidelines and like watch that happen. But yeah, I think for a second maybe like Ford is like, hold up, let's like hold back and see, and then they like, okay, he wasn't really friend or foe. He just is like, you're messing up my swamp.
It's just there. That's how Man-Thing always is. He kind of only cares about a swamp.
Exactly, which
yeah.
I don't know. the fact that he doesn't say.
I guess he is the guardian of the nexus of all realities.
He sucked, is what it is. So yeah, it's not going to apply to this one, but after this one, if they're on the cover and they're in the synopsis and they are in there for like a page, it's going to get a 1 star instantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not like this. I genuinely don't know why I haven't dropped it yet. I really did. I mean, I somewhat enjoyed the second one. I thought it was a little like dumb, but I enjoyed it more than the first one. That's for sure. I did not like the third one, and I have not liked the fourth one so far. So I don't know. We'll stick with the fifth one, maybe, probably. To see what this
wait, does Nucleo die or?
I think so. He gets zapped by Storm.
And then is the new Avengers, is that like the fracture that they're trying to stop?
Well, supposedly it was still Nucleo.
Okay. So these other Avengers are just there for no fucking reason.
Yeah, I don't like not other Avengers. They should still be on their, Earth.
Yeah, but it does say when I'm looking at this Horus guy, it says he's from the Alternaverse, which is Earth 9105. So
I know. So that's why I'm like, okay.
I mean, presumably they will enter that next issue. Next issue also apparently one of the team is dying. So that's something.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, next issue it says a death on the team. Yeah.
The fact that there was a question mark first, nobody's dying. I'll be honest, nobody's dead. But yeah, I'm gonna give this like a 5.
Yeah.
I did not like it.
Yeah, next episode I'm not gonna do a full review next episode, but I will briefly just because I'm gonna read this in between this episode and next episode. I will circle back and give my thoughts on this one briefly. Because as the world's biggest Man-Thing fan, I feel like it is my duty to review this issue that Man-Thing is in. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about the other one that I read that Sebastian did not read, and that is Minor Arcana, issue number 2, from writer and artist and colorist Jeff Lemire. He's doing everything on this one, except lettering, but and the letterer Steve Wands. So this one, it's pretty much a direct continuation from the previous issues. So Teresa has, been kind of transported to this other realm. There's a whole bunch of doors there, and there's clearly something there, like some malicious force there. But so she's still very curious about what this place is. So she goes in and walks through one of the doors and finds this kind of very serene campsite where she finds the husband of the person who she was doing the reading for at the end of the previous issue, the whole thing that got her sent to this place. She finds her husband who is dead. And they talk a little bit. They kind of talk about how he died and, a message that he wants to send to her and everything. And, they're talking back and forth. And then they hear a sound and this other dude freaks out. He's like, "You brought something with you? That's going to fuck this place up. You need to get out of here now." And it's this immediately, this whole kind of sequence has been pretty chill up to this point, but this very much ratchets up the tension by quite a lot. And so she leaves. There's a very cool sequence artistically of kind of her falling back into kind of her physical body. And then she kind of freaks out at the person who she did the reading for, sent her home. And then her mom came down and she gets in a big fight with her and decides to just kind of leave. And that's pretty much the end of the issue. There's this one part, the last page, this one like old dude is just sitting out there and is basically like, "You sure this has to happen?" And he's like, "All right." And that's the end of the issue, the actual end of the issue. And I do think that this is a pretty significant improvement on the first issue. I liked the first issue. I thought it was good. But it was very much kind of this, it was very much an issue just there to set up the, just the series as a whole, set up the characters, set up the town that is a part of this, and set up the concept of this kind of, mystical, just element that is being used in this series rather. I think this does immediately really carry forward some momentum. We see, again, it's still pretty chill, but there is some, creepy stuff that is starting to seep into this series. I think, and also just I like the just structural way of letting us see this kind of more mundane conversation with this guy in this kind of astral plane world, seeing that kind of having a more low-key version, low-key conversation in this world before kind of, again, getting the creepy stuff kind of starting to, just barely enter the picture a little bit here and there. And then to kind of have her run and kind of fall out of that. It was all super cool. I think that all worked really well. Clearly, like, she's not going to actually leave the town. I think the argument with her mom, like, that's fine. Again, character tension and all that, that's all fine. That's not like, I don't think it's bad or anything. But I think for me, the thing that absolutely was the most engaging was that part in this astral world area. I do also think I'm not 100% sold on Jeff Lemire's art yet. However, I am getting there. I think in particular the part where she's going back to the doorway and back to the real world, that's super cool. Like, it's this kind of double page spread with another panel kind of embedded in it. And it looks really good. It looks great. I think the coloring is really interesting. I think it is very, it adds a lot to this world, both when it's used vibrantly and also when it's stripped away either partially or fully. There are some sequences in this that are basically black and white. So yeah, this book so far has been kind of a vibes-based book, and I think this one continues that and actually improves upon that while also still adding some creepy stuff in there, which is the part of this that I'm most interested in, just it's a Jeff Lemire book, and I kind of read Jeff Lemire for more of the horror stuff. I'm hoping this kind of gets farther down that path, but regardless, this has cemented my interest in this book. It has cemented the fact that I will be continuing to pick this up, and just overall, yeah, it's a very, very solid second issue that I liked a lot. I'm going to give it an 8.
Did you like the... I don't remember what you gave the last one.
I gave it a 7, I think. 7, I liked it, but I thought it was a little bit slow.
Yeah, I liked the first one. But anyway, let's see here. It's called Scarlett.
All right. This is Scarlett issue number 5, written by Kelly Thompson, and the artist is Marco Ferrari. I don't think there's a whole lot to say here. This is a pretty simple issue, but this is the final issue of Scarlett. This is the conclusion of this miniseries. So yeah, picks up right back where it left off, where Storm Shadow has the sort of life or whatever, and then Cobra shows up, and there's a big explosion. Cobra, Cobra is immediately going for the sword again. And so, yeah, there's a bit of a not a huge fight, I guess, but there's a bit of a fight between Storm Shadow and some Cobra guys. Scarlett and Jinx basically just kind of run. And even actually Storm Shadow doesn't fight them that much. They kind of all just like book it. They're like, there's too many of them. We can't really do anything here. So they just run and basically just jump off the roof of the building. And they only have 2 parachutes between the 3 of them. So Storm Shadow takes one, Jinx has one, and then Jinx kind of jumps off, and then Scarlett jumps off after her after kind of buying some time, and then kind of catches her in midair. So they're able to deploy the chute, and both survive. So after that, they kind of just all split up in the city. Scarlett meets up with what's his name? I don't know. One of the G.I. Joe guys. Snowjob, you said?
Yeah. That's
Yeah. So he's basically like, hey, we can pull you out of here now. And she's like, no, Jinx is still there. If I dip now, they're going to know I was undercover, and nobody else will be able to get into Arashikage again, because they're going to be much more high security about it. So she decides to go back and essentially just sees that Storm Shadow keeps the Sword of Life, and then everybody's just very pumped. All of Clan Arashikage is very pumped, and that's it. That's the end of the issue. And so I do still like this. I think this is a very consistent book. It was kind of it kind of morphed a few times. It kind of went from this kind of undercover like spy book into like this, very kind of more like samurai-esque feeling thing for a little bit. And then it just went to like a full-on heist book. So it kind of morphed a little bit. I think it was very consistent in its quality. And I think that was a large part of that was because it was very action-oriented. And I think the action did work. I think the art is great actually in points. Some of it's pretty standard stuff, but you have scenes like I think in particular the scene where the Cobra helicopter like blows up the building is pretty amazing. And then I love when Jinx and Scarlett jump off the building, just the use of white space and the panel designs and everything. It really, really, I think, works super well there. So that was all cool in this issue. I think, I don't know, the ending is a little bit abrupt. I would have liked to see more of an actual interaction between somebody in this issue with Cobra Commander, because Cobra Commander is in this, but he doesn't really do anything. And they didn't hype it up tremendously, but the last page of last issue said like, oh, next time it's Cobra Commander. And he didn't really do anything in this. I maybe not have him interact with Scarlett or James, but maybe having him kind of have a brief scene with Storm Shadow could have been cool. But outside of that, I like the idea of Scarlett staying with Clan Arashikage. It feels like this needs another issue though, because it's just kind of it ends so abruptly with them just chanting Arashikage's name as Storm Shadow has the Sword of Life. And I don't know, because the other thing is, right, the synopsis of this says the road to G.I. Joe #1 ends here. I don't know how this sets up G.I. Joe. Scarlett will presumably be a presence. Obviously, like Clan Arashikage, there's more to explore there. I'm sure they'll come back eventually, but I doubt that we will see much in G.I. Joe #1, which is what it specifically says here, that carries on from this. Because this seems completely disconnected from like Duke and all of their story over there on that part of it. And seeing as she's not leaving the clan for a little bit, I don't know how they're going to wrap that and tie this together, at least not immediately. And they don't necessarily have to, but it just feels weird to market this way if they're not going to have this kind of come back in any way immediately. Also, turns out I was wrong about Cobra Commander showing up in this. Not Cobra Commander, sorry. Snake Eyes showing up in this. I really thought he was going to be like a last page reveal, but he's just not in this, which is fine. But yeah, that is one thing that I expected that was not the case here. So overall, I do still like this issue. I think it's solid. And I think the series as a whole has been very solid. I am very excited to see where this continues to go in, G.I. Joe. It did just feel like a bit of an abrupt ending for me, though, here. And so it makes it feel a little bit unsatisfying as a conclusion to this series, although I do still think it is a good issue overall.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty good. It was pretty all right. It was pretty fine. Don't really have a lot to say on it, honestly. Cobra Commander wanted the sword because it was filled with energon. He wants everything with energon right now. I do agree with you the fact that like I wish they would have interacted with Cobra Commander a little more. He kind of just showed up, blew up the building, and then they escaped, and that's all we saw of that on that front. And then apparently there was a guy in here called Hardmaster. I don't.
No, there wasn't. Are you serious? What the fuck?
There's a guy in here called Hardmaster.
Wow. That's not that far off from our recurring character on the show, Throbmaster.
Yeah. He's a thing apparently in this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought this one was pretty good. The art was still great. I liked the spot where Scarlett had to jump after Jinx with the parachute.
Yeah, that was cool.
The way it was like drawn vertically like that, and you just saw her like fall, like both of them falling. I thought it was just very well drawn and stuff like that. Story wise, it was fine. Nothing happened too great. Yeah, it's just it ended the series. Fine enough, I guess. She's still in recover. I thought she'd pull Jinx out at the end of this, but and I think we all thought that they kind of like. At the beginning, they kind of wrote it in a way that made it seem like White Shadow was going to betray them all and just take the sword. That's what I thought was about to happen. It did not happen that way. But
that might still happen at some point, but it's not happening here.
At some point, maybe, but it hasn't happened yet. So, we'll see. But overall, I thought this one was fine. I give it a 7.
I'm going to give it an 8. I think it was pretty good. I did like this series, even if it feels like a kind of a abrupt conclusion. Let's go to the one Sebastian made me read this week, which is the Terminator #1. This is written by Declan Shalvey, with the artist being Colin Craker. Or actually, no, the artist on the main story is Luke Sparrow, and then the artist on the backup is Colin Craker, with the writer on the backup being Sal Crivelli, which, by the way, super cool. Sal Crivelli he has his own comic podcast on the Comic Pop Returns channel. Really great show. He does a lot of kind of podcasts over there. So it's cool to see him like actually writing a backup story for a comic. This one, I do not have much at all to say about. It's very simple. Basically, this is not at all related to any of the kind of, main Terminator movies or anything. It's completely own self-contained story just about this couple trying to escape a Terminator. Like they kind of have this, it's told kind of in media res. So we start at the midpoint. It flashes back, and then we jump back up forward to the present day again, and go from there. But it's kind of the flashback stuff is in in the past, they were being hunted by a Terminator. They didn't know it was a Terminator at first, but they were being hunted by a Terminator. They just thought it was a guy, this couple. And so they kind of do some damage to it, manage to get a plane. They find out that it's a Terminator in the process of that, and then they manage to escape. Jumps forward quite a bit, like decades, it seems. They're just kind of living in the woods in Alaska, having a good old time. And then the Terminator comes back and starts hunting them again and kills them both, I believe. It kills one of them for sure, but I'm pretty sure it kills both of them. Yeah. And like, that's it. That's all this issue is. There is also, again, there is the backup, which is just another Terminator popping up and trying to kill another Terminator, I think. It kind of busts into this one place, and it's going to like about to kill some people, and then another guy shows up, and it's probably another Terminator, I think is the implication. So yeah, it's simple. It's simple in its plot, and I think even in its execution, it's not terribly complex, but I think it is cool enough for what it is. You know, I think these two characters that it introduces, we don't spend a lot of time with them, but it's I think they are actually compelling enough. I think they're pretty immediately likable. You know, I think they're kind of trying to get away from this Terminator. I think that is compelling, and I think it is engaging. I think, you know, we want to see these guys actually, you know, manage to escape the Terminator, which is impressive considering they didn't have a lot of screen time. I think the art's pretty cool. The action is fine. I don't think the action's amazing, but ultimately, like, I think the simplicity of this story is kind of both its strength and its downfall. The problem with time travel stories is it can get very confusing very quickly. This avoids that. However, I do think the simplistic nature of it does mean that it doesn't feel very special or, you know, unique. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think, you know, the way that it's executed doesn't really elevate the structure, the more simplistic structure of the story itself. So it's good. It's solid. I don't think it's amazing. And I don't, you know, it's not a series that I would really plan to pick up the next issue of. It does seem like each issue is going to be a different story. It seems like it's going to be a different kind of an anthology series just about Terminators going after various people. I mean, obviously, like, it's not going to follow these guys. They're both dead. But yeah, I don't know. Again, solid. I don't have much to say besides that. It's solid. It's not one that I'm, you know, really, you know, eager to read the next one. But this is one where if Sebastian made me read another issue of it in future, I would probably not mind.
Yeah, I thought this one was fine as well. I think yeah, besides that, it was fine. I didn't know it was going to be, like, basically, like, a different story each time, honestly. I thought, I didn't, like, going into it, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. I thought it was just going to, like, tell, like, an original story, just, like, a real quick short story about, like, the Terminator probably hunting these old people. But, yeah, it really didn't explain a lot, this issue. It was really just them, the old couple, basically explaining what the hell was happening. But, like, it didn't explain why this Terminator was hunting them. It just showed up one day, basically killed both their families, and they've just been on the run from it since. There's no explanation why it's hunting these two.
Yeah.
You know, they eventually, it's insinuated that they eventually have a child, and they hide the child from the Terminator, and that's what the wife was doing when the Terminator finally showed up again when they were old. Was burning all the photos of their child so it didn't go after the child. You know, and again, I don't understand why the Terminator went after him. It's, you know, maybe that was like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, relating it back to the movies. Maybe it's like John Connor's parents or some shit like that. I don't know.
I really hope it's not. There's no way it is. No, it can't be. It's not Linda Hamilton, so.
Oh, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, it's like, I was just
maybe it's his grandparents
movies or something. Like, exactly. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I thought this one was fine for the most part. Honestly, we didn't get a lot of genuine Terminator in it. It was just a lot of their flashback.
Yeah.
About them running away from it in general. So I don't know. Yeah, I thought this one was fine. I don't know. Maybe I might pick up the next one. I'm not too sure yet. The next one might seem a bit more interesting because it does seem like it's going to be Terminator versus Terminator in that one. So yeah, we'll see.
And it's also like the next one has to. Well, that one is going to be in the backup, I think. But the next main one is going to be just like a troop of them, a troop of people in the Vietnam War, against the Terminator, which
Oh.
also does sound actually kind of interesting.
That
But
does sound kind of interesting.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, we'll see if I pick up the next one. But other than that, I'd give it a 6, honestly.
I'm gonna give it a 7, just kind of barely. I do think it was just good enough to earn that, but I think it is held back by kind of the simplicity of its structure.
Yeah. All right. We have what, 4 left?
Yeah, we got
5.
5 left, and 3 of them are X-Men, so we should probably save that.
All right, let's go with Ultimates.
Okay. This is Ultimates number 5, as always, written by Dennis Camp, and the artist is Juan Fridery. Now, this one also is quite simple, but I think this one, just something about it does work better than Terminator. I think it's reaching for something is kind of the main thing, because this issue, it starts off with Tony basically being like, hey, the person I wanted to be Hawkeye decided not to be Hawkeye and threw the Hawkeye stuff in a trash can. And then somebody else picked it up. So Tony sends Steve to go after this new Hawkeye. And so Steve goes and has a big fight with this Hawkeye. And the new Hawkeye is kind of... here's the thing. This issue is not subtle. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's very much not subtle. This is clearly, like, this entire thing is an allegory for the mistreatment of Native Americans at the hands of people who were just colonizing America. That is basically, like, that is very clearly what this issue is going for, down to having Captain America be the one to fight this new Hawkeye who is a Native American. So, like, it's again, it's not subtle, but it doesn't bother me because I do think the dialogue between the two of them is very sharp. You know, it never feels like it is trying to beat you over the head with it, but it's also just being like, yeah, it's there. It's not hiding its subtext, but it's also not just trying to bludgeon you with it, I don't think, at least. And so, like, the fight between the two of them, it's fine. I'm not immediately a huge fan of this new Hawkeye, but, like, they seem fine, I guess. Obviously, we'll need to wait and see how this character develops over the future of this run and the universe as a whole. But basically, Steve, again, they have this fight between the two of them. Steve kind of is very non-confrontational, really only actually does an offensive move once. The rest of it is he's just kind of dodging around as this other Hawkeye is just shooting arrows at him, which I really like, actually. I think that's great, because Steve, the entire time, is just trying to recruit the new Hawkeye, whose name is Charlie Ramsey, I believe, whereas Tony just wanted Steve to confiscate all the stuff from the new Hawkeye. But so eventually, some, I believe, Roxxon people show up.
It's like a militia group that Roxxon has hired.
Right. And the reason this is happening in the first place is because Charlie has been targeting a lot of, like, Roxxon kind of owned things and businesses and stuff. And, you know, so then when this Roxxon militia group shows up, Steve and Charlie team up, and then Steve recruits Charlie as the new Hawkeye, and then Hulk at the very end is like, I'm gonna kill all the Ultimates, which will be leading up into the next issue, because the Hulk is on the cover there, and it seems like there's gonna be a big fight to kind of close out the first arc between the Ultimates and the Hulk. So yeah, again, simple structure, but I think it does work. First of all, the art's cool, and I think the fight between them is cool enough. There's a couple of cool splash pages in here that I really, really like. I think that's great. And again, like, it is very much not a subtle comic, but I don't mind that, because I think, you know, first of all, like, I think I just agree with the message that the comic is portraying, but also I do think that it does feel purposeful, especially to this character's identity. And so I think that is part of what makes it work in this. Other than that, like, I don't know, yeah, the fight's cool enough, I guess. Here's one thing I am kind of concerned about. There's a lot of fucking Ultimates right now. Like, maybe we're bordering on too many, because we've got Ant-Man and Wasp, we've got Giant Man and Ant-Man, the same fucking people. We've got Captain America, we got Iron Man, we got Doom, we got Thor, we got maybe Sif, we got She-Hulk, we got this new Hawkeye. And I'm pretty, like, we've also got, like, the Human Torch. The original Human Torch is also, like, he's not active right now, but he's kind of around. So there's kind of a lot of characters for this team right now. I think it's managed to avoid feeling overstuffed, because it's only ever focused on a couple of them at the same time. But it is something that I think going forward is it's something I'm going to be kind of watchful of it because I think it could balloon and get kind of out of hand to the point where it feels like the characters are not getting enough spotlight, and some are getting shafted, whereas others are maybe getting too much play. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to. That's one thing I'm going to be kind of paying attention to going forward. But as far as this issue itself goes, I think it's a very solid one. Also, probably has my favorite cover of the week. I think that's a very cool cover. And yeah, another solid one. I mean, the Ultimates continues to be honestly maybe my favorite Ultimate book right now. I think it's just the concepts, the deviations from 616. I think all of that stuff works here. Other stuff like Ultimate Spider-Man, of course, is very fun, very just solid series. But I do think this is the one that is using the fact that this is an alternate universe the best. And I think it's doing so with very interesting concepts. So I'm still very much enjoying this series, very much looking forward to the next issue, the conclusion of the first arc. And yeah, pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this one for what it was. It was pretty good. Basically, as the new Hawkeye kept saying, it was, basically Cowboys versus the Indians. And, except it really wasn't versus. It was more just like, Steve wasn't really, like you'd said, Steve wasn't really trying to fight. He just was trying to listen and, just kind of understand what was going on. And, I don't know, from the beginning, I feel like Tony had set him up to fail, obviously. Tony, from the beginning, was like, I ran him through the database and all this algorithms and stuff, and he's like basically told me that he's not cut out to be a superhero. He's like borderline villain. But Steve goes over there and listens to him, and he believes that is truly not the case. He's doing all this stuff to Roxxon on his beliefs that Roxxon took all this land from his people and stuff like that without really asking. And Steve at the end tells him with the militia group that it's these people that Roxxon hires that force others out of the way so that Roxxon can do what they're doing. What I really liked about this one was all the trick arrows that it kept focusing on the entire fight between Hawkeye and Cap and this one. A couple that I remember specifically was at one point when Steve threw his shield, Hawkeye fired an inertia canceling arrow that just completely stopped the shield in its tracks. He shot a chainsaw arrow. I know he shot at one point an acid arrow. He shot a taser arrow that actually hit Captain America in the back. It was just a bunch of arrows that he shot that were different. And this Hawkeye has his tech has also been upgraded by Tony, as this one essentially never runs out of arrows. It's constantly
3D printer based.
Yeah, it's constantly printing arrows, reprinting arrows, and all that stuff. So yeah. It's a pretty cool concept, but in that sense with the Hawkeye, and yeah, ultimately, finally, when Steve does try to stop Hawkeye, he easily does it with a shield toss, which I kind of didn't understand. It looked based off the drawing, it looked like a very simple shield toss that this Hawkeye could have easily avoided, but I won't gripe on that too much there. But yeah, ultimately, I think this new Hawkeye, we'll see how he interacts mostly with the rest of the team. It seems between him and Steve, there seems to be an understanding. We'll see how the rest interact with and how.
I'm sure there'll be some friction with Tony in particular.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm assuming as well. But yeah, this guy seems very, very strong-willed in a certain sense. So he might not always agree on a lot of things, or he might go off and do his own things on a lot of things. So I'm kind of seeing where I kind of want to see where his team dynamic is going to end up being, how that's going to work. But yeah, ultimately I didn't mind this one. I thought this one was pretty good. And so yeah, I'd give it an 8.
I would give it an 8 as well. And that would bring us to the last issue before the main X-Men block. I know Sebastian already did the X-Force one, but yeah. I wasn't reading that one, so that's a little bit of an outside case. However, this is the last one before the main X-Men block, and that is Green Lantern Civil Corps Special #1. This is a one-shot. It is written by both Philip Kennedy Johnson and Jeremy Adams. We have the artist being Salvador LaRocca. So, Sebastian, this is the start of the continuation of Green Lantern War Journal, because Green Lantern War Journal is not going away, apparently. This is looping in plot threads from both Green Lantern War Journal and the core Green Lantern series and kind of merging them together for the future ongoing Green Lantern book. So it's just nice to have an issue of this again, because I know it's not like the core series, but it is written by one of the people from the core series, and it's also like the first time in a couple issues that we have had one that's not been dealing with absolute power stuff. So it's nice to just kind of get back on track with the series a little bit, especially because we are really dealing with the like main civil war between all of the Green Lantern Corps. That's why it's called this. So basically, this issue starts with John just kind of flying around having a good time when he runs into Kilowog, except Kilowog is evil. Now he's been like possessed seemingly by the yellow spectrum and fights John and beats John. And then John wakes up with a bunch of other people from the Green Lantern Corps. So they essentially decide to go to this one planet and kind of, again, tell them that Tharos is just a shit ruler of the galaxy, or of the universe even potentially, and that the entire council is made up of shapeshifters from the same species. And so that's their plan. It doesn't go too well. Also, by the way, Jadestone is a member of the Green Lantern Corps now, it seems. He just gets called in. And so, and the other thing is, I think Kilowog takes the Dark Star ring from John as well. But so basically, John and Hal go off to that one planet to try to convince everybody that Tharos needs to be taken down, whereas Guy and Cowl and Shepard go to back to Oa, actually, to try and like rescue all the other Green Lanterns. And so while this is happening, Alan Scott pops up in the Chambers of the Unseeing, which is where all those blind dudes are who are holding the quarantine in place around Earth. He pops up and he's like, I'm here to be a distraction. So he distracts them so that Hal and the others can leave Earth, leave Sector 2814, and get to where they need to go. So they go to the council area. Then Tharos himself shows up. It's kind of a whole thing, and then a big fight breaks out because the other ambassadors, by the way, don't really believe the Green Lantern Corps. There's a big fight that breaks out, though, and ultimately they do end up believing the Green Lantern Corps when they see that one of the other people that is with Tharos is in fact a Durlan, shapeshifts back after that guy dies. And then it seems that Tharos has like the Dark Star of the Fen powers because he's wearing the ring and he kind of manifests like the big purple things, the essence of the Radiant Dead, if you will. And so, yeah, while they're doing that, Alan has a big fight with him. He kind of runs away from the Chamber of the Unseen ultimately, but he has a big fight with those guys for a while. And then Guy and Shepard unleash this one dude whose name is Larfleeze. Yeah, he kind of causes another big distraction while Guy and Shepard get some of their Lantern friends out of there. And then Tharos dies, which was just like, that really took me off guard. I thought Tharos was going to be like, them fighting Tharos was going to be like the big part of this next arc. But no, Tharos just dies. He gets killed by the other Durlans who think that he's kind of bad for business now because they're like, Tharos has kind of gone off the deep end. We need to kind of take him down because this is not going to further our goals ultimately. So somehow they managed to call the Star Shroud. I get a little bit confused by this. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah.
But regardless, they call the Star Shroud. He just kills Tharos. He just stabs him through the chest, kills Tharos, and then gets like repossessed while the rest of them are fighting the Star Shroud, and then like uses his, and I guess maybe it's his dying move. It's unclear if he's gonna stay resurrected or not, but he sends out like a possession beam thing to Mogo, which is the member of the Green Lantern Corps that is just a planet, and that becomes a red rage lantern and starts crashing towards the planet that they're on. Thanagar, I believe, is the name. So yeah, there is a lot to this issue. This issue has a lot of developments, but I think they're balanced well. It doesn't feel overwhelming. There is a lot of stuff. I think it helps also, by the way, that this issue is longer. It's a longer issue. It's got more pages, so it has more room to deal with all this stuff, so it doesn't feel overstuffed. If this was all in one like standard size issue, it would be way too fucking much. That would be like unmanageable. However, because it's in a bigger size, bigger format issue, I think it does work better here. And yeah, I think basically all of the elements here I think are interesting. The one that I feel like is maybe not immediately necessary, maybe a couple. I think I was definitely much more engaged on the Hal and John side of things and their conflict against Tharos and the United Planets. as much as I'm unsure about like what the Radiant Dead and the Revenant Queen and the Star Shroud, kind of how they fold into this, because I'm still not sure even what the differences between all those are. Like the distinguishment there is something I'm not entirely clear on. I do still think that the stuff that was going on there was the more compelling side of it. I liked the fight between Alan Scott and the Chamber of the Unseen guys. That was cool, but it did get to a point where I wasn't entirely sure how much purpose it served after the initial part. I'm very interested to see what happens both with Kilowog and Mojo. The fact that they have different, they're now using different parts of the emotional spectrum, I think is cool. Curious to see how Kilowog is even alive. And I love Mojo. Like, I don't really know much about it, but the fact that there's just a planet who is a Green Lantern is pretty cool. I love that idea. So I'm interested to see how Mojo kind of plays into this. The stuff with Guy and Cal and Shepard is probably my least favorite part of this. It's just kind of like a wacky, like, rescue mission that is not really that big a part of this issue and doesn't feel as connected. I know, like, obviously that will come back into play because now a bunch of the other Lanterns are just able to help out with Guy and Hal, or with Hal and John rather. But that did feel a little bit extraneous, and it kind of felt tonally a little bit different. I don't dislike Guy. I think he's fun, but I think he works best as either a supporting character with other people or in his kind of own story. And I think him having kind of his own story within this other issue, I think that doesn't work as much, because I think the contrast is a little bit weird. But regardless, I liked this issue quite a bit, despite, again, my confusions with the Dark Star stuff and my not loving the Guy stuff. I do still like this issue. I'm glad to, again, just be getting more Green Lantern stuff in this series, because I do like the series. I think it's very consistent and very solid. Just generally, it's good to have an issue of this series actually focusing on the plot threads that have been set up in this series and not just doing absolute power tie-in stuff that it has been for the past couple issues. So I like this. I think it's a very solid issue, and looking forward to seeing how this continues in the core Green Lantern series.
Listen, guys. War Journal, am I right?
Yep.
How does
we love War Journal? That's one thing.
Back?
One thing we know.
It got sealed off in the ring, we think.
Okay.
Listen, that all of War Journal is just confusing, right?
Yeah, I agree.
There's three people that look the exact same that have three different names that are apparently all different.
Yep, and they all have like purple energy.
They're all the same. Like the Revenant Queen is the Star Shroud or something like that, or the Star Shroud is the Revenant Queen.
I know the Radiant Dead are like the minions of the Revenant Queen.
Yes, that's just the power.
Outside of that, right? The distinction is tricky. Yeah,
it's the same. So the ring, John still has it because it can do something or whatever. I don't remember that one. Kilowog being alive. I never saw him die. I know he does die.
Wait, did you not read the other issues of the series leading up to this? Because his death was in this series.
Was it?
Yeah, it was in a flashback issue.
Shit, I don't remember the death then.
Yeah, it was in like issue 7 or something. It was after the Sinestro fight they went back.
It was the Sinestro, wasn't it? Like
it was after the present day Sinestro fight they went back and explained it. Yeah,
I think
Sinestro
wasn't it because wasn't it because of the of Sinestro too?
Sinestro was involved, but I think it was more it was like Sinestro and Tharos kind of combined, I think, were the causes of his death. Yeah,
that's right. I remember now actually. So he's somehow alive. Yeah, he's Yellow Lantern here in this one at least. Then I completely agree with you on what you're saying, that the Hal and John stuff is a lot more interesting than the rest. Like the Alan Scott one for me, I feel like they just included it in there to show some context as to what's happening on that front, as to why they're able to escape Earth, rather than just Hal being like, I called in a favor. The Guy Gardner stuff, like, it's enjoyable. It's kind of nice. It was kind of funny to see the banter between the two of them, between Guy and Kyle. Is it Kyle? Or is it
Callan Shepard?
Callan.
Another Green Lantern War Journal character, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I remember. It was kind of funny to see basically just how much everybody thinks like Guy's just an idiot. Essentially, it was kind of funny just to see him being like, that's like the Larsa Fleas, when he released Larsa Fleas, Callan's like, okay, well, what about when we have to fight him to put him and Callan's or Guy's like, this is future Guy problem. Present Guy is all about in the now and releasing the people now.
I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of funny. But yeah, the house stuff is a lot more interesting. You know, how Tharos has the you know the star heart ring or whatever it's called. I don't.
No,
remember.
no, no. Alan Scott has the Star Heart. Tharos has like the Dark Star ring or something,
Dark Star, the
which is
Fen ring.
yeah, which is separate from the Star Shroud, but maybe it's not. But it is separate from the Radiant Dead and the
It's
Revenant Queen, but maybe it's not.
clearly not
But
because
he's
the Star
possessed.
Shroud.
The Dark Star ring is possessed by the uncle of that one person who's maybe also the Revenant Queen or the Star Shroud.
It's so confusing. Yeah. Anyway,
You guys all following, by the way? Is this all clear to everybody? I feel like it's
Yeah.
pretty self-explanatory there.
the people, the same people that are part of Tharos. I don't remember what his like people are called.
Durlin is the
Durlin. Yeah, his
is-
alien race
yeah.
is called. The Durlins are somehow able to call the Star Shroud, which is different from the Dark Star thing. They're able to call Star Shroud like miasma god thing, and he kills Tharos. But then
Tharos gets possessed by one of the other ones, maybe? I don't know.
by I thought it was the Star Shroud, right? Because then no, that's right. Because Hal and John captured the Star Shroud by just making bubbles around them, and they're just gonna have to keep forming bubbles. So I guess maybe it was probably the
but the
Dark
Star Shroud, the Star Shroud had possessed Tharos though, or Tharos was channeling the power of the Star Shroud, so it might have been the Star Shroud that possessed.
No. The Tharos is channeling the
God.
Dark Star energy of the Fen in the ring, which is different from the Star Shroud.
By the way, I have the comic in my hands. I am looking through it as we're talking about this, and I still can't fucking understand what's happening. I'm still confused. So.
Dude, War Journal was the most confusing shit known to man. It made no sense towards the end. It was so confusing, and it still doesn't make sense now. Anyway, Tharos is supposedly dead. I don't know.
But he's kind of resurrected. I don't know how long he's going to be resurrected for, is the question. Yeah.
He called Mogo to where they're at, the council planet or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I think it's Thanagar is the name.
Is it Thanagar? Oh, it is Thanagar. They're on Thanagar, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, so Tharos called Mogo to Thanagar. And yeah, it ended. I will say that last page of just seeing Mogo as a red planet approaching Thanagar, insanely cool.
It is cool.
Super cool. Overall, as an issue, War Journal still sucks, still confusing, even to this day, makes no sense to me. I don't like.
You say even to this day as if it was like a long time ago. That series ended not that long ago.
Comics, it'd be ages ago. Anyway, I don't like. I'm starting to like. I don't mind John. I hate the fact that his sister is just a construct he's created and has.
I hope they don't keep that around too long.
I don't like it. The main story is fine. I'm not gonna equip my rule in this, considering Sinestro's on the front page and he's not in the issue at all. He's not gonna be included on the list simply because I think it's more of like, since it's like a special, I think they just like wanted to like, I don't know, do something about that.
He's also not the only character on the cover that's not in the issue.
Exactly. So I'm only gonna do it like if they actually show up in the issue and they're only in there for a page. That's gonna be.
See, I think it's almost worse if they're on the cover and they're not in the issue at all.
Yeah, because like this one, like I said, it's like
that's
special.
Just false advertising.
It's like a special, so like, well, yes, I did think like, okay, Sinestro's finally gonna be in this because we've seen him become the Red Lantern, but I don't think they've fought yet with him as a Red Lantern, right?
They might have. I think they did.
When he first became a Red Lantern, yes, they skirmished for a bit, but then he like Sinestro just like left, and we haven't seen him since. So I don't know. We'll see. Overall, I just like the Hal stuff was good for me. The Guy stuff was like all right. The Alan Scott stuff was like okay, sure. They just like wanted to throw, just like have him in there. I feel like just for the special, honestly. Dark Star of the Fence stuff, Star Shroud, confusing as all fuck. I don't understand what's the difference. Ultimately, I'd give this a 7.
I think I'm gonna give it a 7 as well. I will say I think the reason why the War Journal stuff is in here is because this conflict that they're building up to is kind of too big of one for them to leave Jon Stewart out of it. And I think it would be weird if they just ignored all of War Journal and just jumped right in. So I think that's why it's here. But yeah, it is still confusing. It played kind of a bigger part in this than I thought it would as well. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7. It's good, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But there is some stuff here that's not quite as engaging as the other parts of it. So it's X-Men block time, people. We got 3 issues in the X-Men block, and we're gonna go down the list in alphabetical order here, starting with Exceptional X-Men, issue number 2, written by Eve Ewing, and the artist is Carmen Carnero. So I would say, after 2 issues, granted, like 2 issues, it's still early, but I would say after 2 issues, this is my least favorite of the core 3 X-Men books. So not counting all the like X-Force or, you know, any of these other various ones, but between X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, and Exceptional X-Men, this is my least favorite so far. I don't think it's bad, but it's just, it's a little bit just, I don't know. It's low key, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's so like, it's quaint. It's very quaint.
Yeah.
And again, not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think like, and I think, you know, I understand the inclination to do that, because it is like a lot of these other ones are these bigger, kind of more traditional superhero stories where you have a lot of big action going on and stuff. I don't mind the idea of doing like a more kind of, again, quaint, quiet, slice of life X-Men book. The problem is we already have one of those. It's Ultimate X-Men, and Ultimate X-Men is way better than this, I think. Again, not that this is terrible, it just, it doesn't quite stack up to the rest of the lineup, I think. The art's great. I really like the Carmen Carnero art again. I don't think this is necessarily the best showcase of it, but I think it's good. Basically, again, this issue, it's pretty simple. It's Kate is going on a date with the person that she was not able to in the last issue because of the scheduling error. And so basically, her date has to go to her, like, I think it's like her cousin's like high school soccer game or something, and invites Kate/Kitty along. And while they're there, there's some other kids who are also at the game who start like just bullying this other mutant kid who's there, who's just going to support his friend. And then one of the players on the team, who's also a mutant, goes and like kind of starts like fighting back. And so yeah, then it's basically just, there's kind of a bit of a fight. Kate kind of gets them out, or Kitty. I keep just, it's such a habit to say Kate for me at this point, because of the Krakoan era. But Kitty gets them all kind of out of there, introduces the 2 new mutants that she met to the one from last issue, and then they all show up at her apartment to kind of try and ask for her to like mentor them. And Kitty's just like, I don't want to, like, go away. And then when she opens the door to tell them to go away, Emma Frost is there and is like, all right, I'm gonna mentor these people myself. Clearly, by the way, baiting Kitty into trying to actually then mentor with Emma and like kind of join this X-Men team.
Yeah.
So that'll presumably be the conflict in the next issue, is Kitty versus Emma. But yeah, I think like this issue, it's not bad. It's got a sort of charm to it. I think it does have a sort of similar energy that some of the classic like Claremont X-Men run had from the 70s and 80s, and that it is very just focused on kind of younger mutants just kind of trying to figure out their powers and figure out, you know, what they're doing and everything. I think the difference is like in Claremont's X-Men, you had that, and in the same issue, you had these explosive action sequences. This is just kind of the more slice of life, kind of coming of age mutant story, which again is not necessarily a bad thing. It just feels, in comparison, like especially to something like Uncanny X-Men, just such a kind of a less important is the wrong word, but just kind of a less, you know, and engaging is not even necessarily the right word either. But it's a smaller series, and so it does feel a little bit kind of to be less of a big deal than some of the other X-Men books. And again, it's not even really fair to compare this to the other books, because they're trying to do different things. But it was a thought that was going through my head. There is some stuff that I like in this. One of the mutant guys, I don't know his name, but he's the one who's just kind of like changing colors constantly. He's got some funny lines. There's a point where the mutant who's on the soccer team is like kind of trying to like mime to him from the field, be like, hey, you okay, man? Like you need help from the Midnight Mission or something. And he's just like, please, like, stop making Spider-Man gang signs at me. Like, I don't know you. I don't want to get involved in anything. I thought that was funny. Like, there's some fun stuff in here. And again, I like Kitty a lot. She's one of my favorite like X-Men adjacent characters, actually. So it's good to see her, but she doesn't really play much of a factor in this issue. Actually, she's kind of not a huge player in this. Is mostly focused on trying to introduce these new X-Men, these other new mutant characters. So Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. I actually don't dislike this at all. I think it's fairly solid issue. I think it's actually better than the first issue, but still just a little bit underwhelming, or just, not kind of the exciting book that I was kind of hoping for. That's not this book's fault. It's clearly trying to do a very different thing, but I was still kind of a little bit disappointed by this book, even though I don't think it's bad. I am curious. I hope Emma will get like a bigger play in the next issue, because she's kind of not had anything to do yet. And I like Emma as a character as well, but yeah, that's a thing for next issue. So, anyway, as it stands, this issue, it's not bad. I think it's solid enough, but just not kind of my favorite of the X-Men books.
Yeah, I think this is fine. I just find it I do find it a bit boring to read, honestly. Like it's fine for what it is, but it's just like I feel like it's not anything we haven't seen before, really. Like it's specifically this one, like it just felt like a whole lot of nothing. Like people still, just shitting on mutants for, for just looking different, especially in this case. People always hate on those specific mutants the most. Besides that, you can't, like, if someone looked at Kitty, they would not be able to tell she's a mutant, obviously. But these people that look different, they get the worst of it. And that was a big part of this one, was just that, and then this new mutant on the soccer team who kind of has similar powers to Kitty.
Yeah.
She can phase as well, just like Kitty can. And we did see the slight mentorship from Kitty when, after Kitty got them out of the fight with the bullies, she accidentally phased into like a pole and then unphased, and she was just like in the middle of the pole, like underneath the benches. And Kitty went over there and like basically taught her how to, like, basically just talked her out of that situation. And you could tell, like, she's a really good mentor in that sense. She just wants to step away from all that, and her old life won't let her, mainly being Emma Frost. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this one was fine for what it was. I just, like you said, it was just like a slice of life of like Kitty's life happening in that moment. I just found it a little boring to read, honestly, ultimately. And so, yeah, not much to say on it besides just that, really. So I'll give it a 7.
I am also going to give it a 7. I think it's solid enough. I don't think it's bad. I think it's totally fine. And I hope it kind of gets better and starts getting more interesting in future. Because I think there is potential here. I just don't necessarily see it immediately executed upon. Next up would be Phoenix number 4, written by Stephanie Phillips, with the artist being Alessandro Miracolo. Okay, so I will say I think this is probably the best issue of the series so far, for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that is also kind of situational to a degree, because this issue is kind of a tale of two halves for me. I really like the first half of this. I think the first half is very good. As soon as Gore the God Butcher shows up, because he's the main villain of this, as soon as Gore shows up, this issue tanks, I think. Tanks is maybe the wrong word, but I think it does get worse. Because the first part of this issue, I think it's just a really nice conversation between Jean and Carol, Captain Marvel, just about like being heroes, being cosmic heroes, and just kind of letting yourself just relax and enjoy yourself from time to time, and not be so focused on the terrifying power that you have that could be quite destructive, but just kind of trusting that, that Jean and Carol are in control of it enough so that they will not just unleash it on people. In Phoenix's case in particular, like, she has, of course, killed a lot of people as the Phoenix unintentionally. Like, it wasn't Jean doing it to a degree, because she was kind of taken over and possessed by the Phoenix, but she still absolutely feels like those deaths are on her. And so that conversation between her and Carol, I think, was really, really nice, and actually kind of I feel like justified Carol being in this issue. Going into this issue, I was a little bit skeptical about that. Not because I have a problem with Carol or Captain Marvel, but because I think it's a little bit weird how guest star heavy this book has been so far. Because we've had one every issue, and I know, like, issues 2 and 3, it was the same guest star, but still, we had issue 1, we had Nova. Issue 2 and 3, we had Corsair, Peter Corsair. And then in this issue, issue number 3, we've got Captain Marvel. And like I get it's obviously it's a connected universe, like other characters are going to show up, and it's fun to see other characters show up. But to me, and maybe this is just like my mindset of having read a lot of comics from the 70s and 80s, but in those, decades, if you see a book just have a ton of guest stars, that means it was on the verge of just being axed. And when that like that's why they would use all these guest stars, is to try to boost sales to keep the book going. So for me, when I see guest stars pop up this frequently, it feels to me like somebody at Marvel, on whatever level, doesn't have the faith in Jean as her own character to carry this book kind of by herself. And I don't know, maybe next issue will just kind of be, maybe there won't be a guest star next issue. Next issue appears to be the big fight with Pericus, so it might not be a big guest star next issue. But regardless, it's felt weird to me, but at the same time, I do, to be fair, think that they have fit in the story every time they've popped up. And I do think that Carol's appearance through this conversation was very much justified. Then we have a scene basically where there's a debate in this kind of intergalactic council where they're just kind of trying to figure out what to do about the Phoenix. I think this is also very strong conversation, very strong debate. There's a really good scene I like where one of them basically is just like, Gladiator, you kind of fucking have sucked yourself. If Phoenix killed you, I kind of would be inclined to just look the other way. Like, that was all good. It was all sharp dialogue. I think the debate and the all sides of it were very well written. And then Pericus shows up and is like, hey, Gladiator's right. Jean needs to be taken down. And then Jean gets like a cosmic message from Gore. And I do think this is where it starts to go downhill. I think there is interesting stuff to be explored in a fight between Phoenix and Gore, and they start to do it. They're talking about how, like, she is basically a god, like maybe not like biologically, but with her powers, she is on godlike status, godlike level. And, I think there is an interesting exploration there. It's just not in the issue. I think that idea is good, but they don't really spend much time on it, because instead they just start having narration from Adani again while the fight is playing out. And the fight itself is not great. Like, it's fine, but it's not amazing. I guess Gore has like all black absorbed inside him. It's his heart now. So he's kind of got like symbiote powers and stuff as well. All that's fine. I do just think that, like, I would have preferred to see more verbal back and forth between Gore and Phoenix rather than just having Adani like narrate the history of Gore, which I already know. I get that not everybody will, but this is not new information to me. So instead of this engaging dialogue between Gore and Phoenix about the nature of godhood and why Gore is going after her, it's just kind of a rehash of stuff that I already know. And then it ends with Gore killing her, in parentheses, in quotes, and then she just comes back to life, and that's kind of it. I don't know if we're going to see Gore come back in future issues of this. I kind of hope we do, because again, I want to see more of that concept explored. But yeah, so it is an issue with two very opposing sides in quality. I think the first half, I genuinely think, is very good, like the best this series has been, hands down, and some of the best stuff I've read from Stephanie Phillips. However, I do just think I was disappointed by that ending. Gore's role in this also, by the way, feels super out of place. He does not seem to really fit in this issue, despite the motivations actually making sense. But it seems like he just kind of pops up and then he's gone, and it just doesn't really. He feels out of place in this issue. And yeah, I think the fight was a huge missed opportunity. And so for that reason, I find myself feeling both very happy with this issue and thinking it's the best issue of the series, while also feeling incredibly disappointed at the missed potential I feel there is here. So it's a weird balance this issue walks, but I'm mixed on it, but I like it more than the rest of the series ultimately.
Yeah, no, I thought this one was actually pretty good as well. Like Carol just kind of showing up and just basically talking to Phoenix, or Jean. I'll call it Jean, actually. Talking to Jean and basically explaining that, like, she can't be afraid of the Phoenix Force, because otherwise, she's not truly in control of it. Like, she wants to be, or like she wants to think she is, And so, yeah, so Gore showing up. I mean, I don't know. This is my first time ever reading anything with Gore.
So
the original Gore run is the original like Gore arc is incredible. That's my favorite part of Jason Aaron's like 10-year long Thor run is that initial Gore arc.
Yeah, I know he's like, besides watching him in the movie, which I know they got him wrong a bit. I know he's not as menacing.
It's the broad strokes of the character, but it's a way worse version of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he's supposed to be a lot more menacing. Or at least in the comics he is. Like in that Thor run. I know he's like he does a lot of shit. You know, the fact that like, you know, he's got the all black, right? That's the sword's name, right? No. The Necro Sword.
It's both. It's all black the Necro Sword.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's a part of him now. It's like it's his heart, is if I remember correctly, and all that stuff. You know, the fight between them two, I think it was pretty good. You know, I think it's going back to what Captain Marvel said about it. You know, her saying that she's, you know, Jean is the strongest person like in the universe, and it kind of shows here that she's too scared really to use all of her power. Because, you know, realistically, I feel like the Phoenix Force, you know, I mean, not knowing too much about Gore, and I know he's supposed to be, like, on par with gods and stuff like that. But, like, I feel like, you know, with the Phoenix Force and Jean and stuff, I feel like she should be able to make short work of Gore.
Yeah, he'd probably put up a bit of a fight, but she should win that.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, again, like, going back to what I was kind of trying to say is like ultimately she's still too afraid of the Phoenix Force in general, and you know she's trying to make do on everything that she has done in the past uncontrollably, of course. But and so yeah, so ultimately Gore gets the drop on her and ultimately wins that first fight. But she obviously gets resurrected because it's, you know, Phoenix Force. It's in the name, Phoenix. You know, they come back to life. And then yeah, the other part of this is the you know, the council talk or whatever with the Gladiator and stuff. This is also my first time ever reading anything with Gladiator. You know,
I haven't read much with him, but
I was about to say yeah, I didn't get much of a thing from him besides the fact that he kind of seems like an ass, honestly. But
he is, but he's an interesting one, and he's got some cool action abilities as well.
Yeah, I know he's in the game. I have.
Is that Contest of Chaos?
Contest of Champions.
Contest of Champions, yeah. Sorry, Contest of Chaos is that bad event that we read a year ago.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, he's relatively new, so this is. I'm excited because otherwise I would have no idea who that guy was.
I wonder if he's in Marvel Snap. I like Marvel Snap.
He might be. They have a lot of characters in Marvel.
They have a lot in Marvel Snap.
We're sidetracked here. But yeah, that, you know, first time ever reading anything with Gladiator. You know, kind of seeming like an ass. I don't know. I know he's super, like, what's the word?
Arrogant, maybe?
No, like attached to his, like, you know, like
he's very loyal to his
loyal to his, like, you know.
I think he's protecting the Shi'ar Empire as his name.
Shi'ar, something like that. Yeah.
Shi'ar, yeah.
Shi'ar Empire, yeah. And so he's super loyal to them, and obviously all that stuff. But yeah, then Pericus shows up, and you know, I don't know, basically is trying to convince them that Jean is bad when I don't know. I don't see why. Just because she can come back to life because this cosmic entity power is.
I mean, I know why he's trying to convince them that she's bad because he wants to kill her.
But, I mean, obviously, I'm just saying, like, I don't see how him showing them that she's coming back to life and possibly defeating Thor is gonna convince them that she's a bad thing. You know,
I think it's just them trying to. I think it's just Paris trying to freak all of them out by saying like she's so powerful, and if she ever does unleash any of that, you guys are fucked.
Yeah, I mean that's probably where he's going with it, but like. I feel like that's some hard convincing there, dude. I just be like, man, all I saw was that she defeated some evil cosmic entity, and yeah. So what?
See, I think it's made less of a stretch though by the fact that most of these beings have already seen her commit planet genocide.
Yeah.
So I think that's still kind of in the back of their minds for a lot of them.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I think this one was all right. I think this was fine. I liked it. I liked it pretty good. It was pretty good. I liked the beginning. The fight ultimately with Gore was, I think, good on a certain extent. At some point, I feel like they were literally just flying while just holding each other into space before she got stabbed.
Exactly. That's my problem. I don't think the fight's very
Yeah.
good because of that. Yeah.
Like I think it started out fine and then it just became weird. And then the council stuff was, I don't know, it was just there. Gladiator. So yeah. I don't know. I'd give it, let's see, I give the last one a 7. I'm gonna give this one also a 7.
I'm going to give this one a 7 as well. I gave the last one a 6. Again, I do think that this is in many ways better than the rest of the run to this point. And it's disappointing that I can't give this a higher score. I want to give this an 8 because I think the beginning is like genuinely very strong, but I just think that that last half is too much of a drop back to what I'm kind of used to from the series that I can't give it more than that. And it's a bummer because I do think that this issue shows me that the series has potential, but I'm still kind of mixed on the series as a whole. And same goes for this issue. So anyway, that would lead us to the final issue of the week of the episode, which is Sentinels #1, written by Alex Packnadel with the artist being Justin Mason. So this is a new X-Men book. New book in the X-Men from the Ashes era of X-Men. And immediately, this one kind of gave me pause when it was first announced because it has, I think, the most unique premise by far of any of the books that have been announced, at least up to this point. And I think even, the stuff that we know about that's going to be dropping in the coming months, I think even this still has the most unique premise out of all of them. This feels genuinely fresh and genuinely like something new for the X-Men line, whereas a lot of the others do feel, even the ones that I like, feel like they're not really necessarily breaking new ground on a lot of stuff. This one does feel like it is going in a new direction that is genuinely unique and fresh for the X-Men. So the concept here is essentially there's this team of, I believe, humans.
Yeah, they are.
Who are working for Greymalkin, which is that's what used to be the X-Mansion, but is now where all the mutants are being held. And so it's this team of humans who are working for Greymalkin who have been imbued with like Sentinel nanotech that upgrades their kind of powers, their power level, gives them some actual powers, upgrades their power level, but also has some drawbacks, that being essentially if your emotions kind of go outside of this area that is considered to be kind of regulated, then you will what they call graft, which is just kind of like turn into a robot, it seems, is kind of the implication. Like you start speaking binary and kind of getting more mechanical visually. One of the other guys makes mention of the fact that because one of them at the start of this, they go on this initial mission to try and capture Omega Red, which is cool to see him. He's been kind of absent since Krakoa, so it's cool to see him pop up. I think really good art, actually. I don't necessarily know if I think the art is great overall, but when Omega Red is on panel, it's like he's drawn fantastically. I don't know about the rest of it though. But yeah, so they go on this mission to capture Omega Red. One of these, Sentinels, the team of Sentinel guys, had recently had, I think, like one of his family members had died recently or something.
Father.
Yeah, and so because of that, his emotions went out of that kind of regulated range. He starts to graft after kind of the mission goes wrong. And so one of them just shoots him, takes him down. We don't know what happens if they fully graft. I'm assuming they just become like an uncontrollable Sentinel. I hope we kind of see that happen later on. Or maybe they just kind of become more machine, but they kind of just become more of like an android thing. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, we see back at Greymalkin. So Dr. Ellis, who is the kind of the person who leads Greymalkin, she is working with Lawrence Trask, the descendant of kind of the original Trask, who was the one who initially built the Sentinels. He's there. He seems to want to do this to kind of try to more humanely, like, take care of mutants. Like, he wants to just use these guys to capture them.
Is what he specifically said, yeah.
Right. He wants to capture the ones who are like Omega Red, who are going around like killing people and stuff, as opposed to just killing all mutants like, Bolivar Trask wanted to do. It is unclear why he's working at Greymalkin. Maybe he just sees that as a means to an end, but Ellis is clearly, she does not have the best interest of mutants at heart, so I'm not really sure why he's working with her there, but regardless. So yeah, basically they did a new recruit joining after the one died. We see a little bit kind of the kind of leader of the Sentinels ends up having a fight with Trask, not like physical, but just kind of is like, they get into an argument. And I really like actually how Trask is explaining it, because he's kind of using the Sentinels as an analog for like the story he's telling about these wolves that were in between two villages that were kind of stopping a war between these two villages because they were there and they were fearsome, and the two villages didn't communicate because they didn't want to fight the wolves. And once the wolves were killed and removed from the environment, the villages then got into this reignited this like blood feud they had started years ago and all killed each other. So Trask is kind of saying these Sentinels are the wolves, and that like humanity and mutants are those two villages. The Sentinels are there to kind of take care of the mutants that are more dangerous, and to try to keep the peace between the two, the mutants and the humans. I think that's a really interesting angle to do. I think that's a really cool way to describe it. That was all really good, I thought. And then, yeah, basically, the main guy has a son who is seemingly estranged. And then Trask, they try to oust Trask from his company, but he manages to keep hold of it. Then Omega Red, the Blob so then the Blob kind of escapes from... or starts to escape from Grey Malkin. They, I think, just take him down pretty quickly. But in the process, one of the Sentinels goes to deal with that while the other one is still with Omega Red. And then Omega Red tries to kill that Sentinel, but she has her Godzilla breath that she develops. There's also something apparently Trask is keeping a guy that looks kind of like the Winter Soldier in Civil War when he's in that sleep pod thing. It seems like that's kind of, I'm not sure what's going on there, but that seems interesting. And then after that one person, Drumfire, she Godzilla breaths, then she just starts saying Onslaught. Now that's a big fucking deal, because Onslaught is the combination of Professor X and Magneto. Onslaught's been gone for a while. I think he might have had a brief appearance in one of the Krakoan era books, but I can't entirely remember, but that's a huge deal. A lot of people hate Onslaught because he kind of, the story he first appeared in was terrible, but I haven't read that, so I have no real opinion on Onslaught, and this seems kind of interesting to me. Overall, I think this is good. I think it's a very interesting concept, and I'm glad that this new era of X-Men is still allowing for some innovation as opposed to just retreading kind of the old hits in terms of X-Men and mutant stuff. It doesn't all 100% come together for me. To be fair, I read this when I was very tired. I was really, really tired when I read this. So my kind of thoughts on it are maybe not as concrete as they would be had I read this when I was kind of fully awake. But I think the dialogue is mostly good. I think for me, it's that I don't immediately gel with any of the main group of Sentinel characters yet. I think if that changes, this could all really click together for me, but I do genuinely think the concept here is really interesting. I like the appearance of Omega Red. I think there's some really cool stuff in here, and I think this is genuinely a good idea. I'm glad they're exploring it. It just doesn't all come together for me right off the bat, and I think that is partially because the main team is kind of unlikable for me so far. So we'll see. This is a miniseries. It's only 5 issues. I am excited to see where this goes, and this could be something really cool if it kind of gets its characters to a point where they are more engaging and relatable, I guess, but even just more, characters that you can just kind of invest with and like more likable, I should say.
Yeah. No, I actually quite enjoyed this one. I think the beginning scene where the Sentinels were first fighting Omega Red was actually pretty good. They each have their own separate powers. I know the main guy, he can assimilate his armor onto something and activate it essentially. In this one, he activated a pickup truck to crash into Omega Red. And then I know Voivod or whatever his name is he blows himself up. And then the one that died, I have no idea what he did. Genuinely.
Yeah, I don't really know either.
But I know the new one, she has a Godzilla breath. But I think overall I just really liked the action in this one. The story it's trying to tell too, I think it's very interesting how this new Trask is basically he as a mutant himself, he doesn't want to end mutant kind. He just wants to save it in his own way. So I think this is actually a very interesting story. And I think I just really like the art behind it. The second scene, not much of a fight, but the second scene where we first see the Godzilla breath, I think that was pretty cool. I think Onslaught being in this is also going to be really cool. This is my first time ever reading anything with Onslaught.
Great character design at the very least.
Yes, the big crab guy, And yeah, I think I just quite enjoyed this one. I like the story. I like where it's going to be going, or I hope I like where it's going to be going. We'll see in the future ones. But I genuinely didn't know if I was going to like this one. Honestly, I was a bit scared going into this if I was whether or not I was going to like it. But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed this one. This was pretty good. And yeah, I gave it an 8.
I'm gonna give it a 7. Again, I think it would be an 8 for me if I gelled with the characters a little bit more. So I'm hoping it'll get up there later. But yeah, right now I'm gonna give it a 7. And that would wrap it up for this episode of Earth's Mightiest Comics. Thank you, everybody, as always, for watching or listening. Next episode, we're going to be talking about a bunch of... Next episode is stacked, actually. There's a lot of good stuff next episode. We got the finale of Daredevil Woman Without Fear, which is... the last issue I didn't love, but I do still think the series is solid for the most part. Next issue of Department of Truth, again, fantastic series. I've said a lot about this, but it's really great series. The finale of Destro... I have been back and forth on Destro. I think there's a lot of good stuff here, but it's not my favorite. I'm hoping this issue will kind of tie everything together in a way that really sets up some good stuff for the future of the Energon universe. Got some DC all-in stuff with Green Lantern, Titans, and Wonder Woman. Green Lantern is it's doing the same old thing. Titans I'm kind of interested in because I want to see what they do after that horrible Tom Taylor ending to his run. Yeah. Curious to see how the new creative team does stepping in here. And then Wonder Woman... I don't know. This series, it's starting to feel a little bit tiresome to me a little bit. I think it's dragging a little bit, and I do think it's kind of running on a little bit past the point of... It's getting to the point where I'm losing interest, but I will still pick this up to see what they do with like the continuation of Sovereign and everything. But I think it's possible that if I like Absolute Wonder Woman enough, I might just drop this core Wonder Woman series. Regardless, though, we've also got the start of the next chapter of Jed MacKay and Alessandro Capuccio's Moon Knight run. We got Moon Knight Fist of Concha #1. Very excited to see what this is all about. Mark Spector is back. I am curious to see how they'll kind of develop this story further, seeing as I don't see there being a lot of room from that at the end of Vengeance of the Moon Knight, but still very excited for this. It's a great creative team, and this run has been great all the way through. Got the next new X-Men book as well with Mystique #1. I'm actually very excited for this. I think the creative team is pretty solid. And it's like Mystique versus Nick Fury. I think it's going to be a cool one. Genuinely, I think that's one to keep an eye on. Also, new issue of Wolverine. We'll see. I didn't love that first issue, but I thought it was fine. And then new issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, which of course is a very solid series. And then new issue of Uncanny X-Men. Sick as hell cover. I'm so pumped for this issue of Uncanny. I love this series a lot. Again, I keep talking about this. I keep gushing about this series, but I love this series. I'm so excited for this one. So yeah, anything on your end you would like to shout out, Sebastian?
We got Blood Hunters #3.
Yep. You gonna read Avengers Assemble, by the way?
Not on my pull list.
It is on your pull list. Avengers Assemble. It's right in front of Blood Hunters.
It's on my pull list.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think so. Yeah. That was the one with the
It's like the Avengers B team. Yeah.
I remember it.
And apparently they're fighting the Red Ghost. I don't know if you remember those guys. I fucking hate the Red Ghost. It's such a dumb villain. It's the Red Ghost and the Super Apes, and I forgot that they even existed until I saw that cover. That they're an early Fantastic Four villain. They suck. So yeah, I'm not surprised you don't remember them because they're very forgettable and not very good villains. But yeah, they're gonna be there. So that's something. Okay, yeah. Well, as mentioned, that would wrap it up for this episode. Thank you again, as always, for watching or listening on whatever platform you may be on. If you are on YouTube, you can of course like the video if you enjoyed it. You can also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of our podcast episodes. You can also hit the bell notification so that you do not miss when we post new episodes, because you will be notified of them. You can also leave us a comment, let us know what some of your favorite comics from the past couple of weeks have been, and if there's anything that we should be reading that we're not currently reading. And you can also get in contact with us at our email address, which is earthsmightiestcomicspod@gmail.com. That is all one word. And then, of course, you can also follow the show over on Spotify if you'd like to not miss any episodes over there. So yeah, thank you again, everybody, for watching or listening, as always, and thanks for bearing with me on the slower editing as well and uploads over the past couple of weeks. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next episode.